Chapter 110. The movement technique that Dong Ying was so proud of was completely grasped by Lin Xian's purple spirit eyes. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dong Ying's attacks were as fast as lightning, and after each attack, he would disappear. The disciples below the stage watched nervously. At this moment, Lin Xian suddenly attacked. He stomped his right foot on the ground, and the force caused the entire stage to tremble. Gotcha! Countless cracks spread out like a python's web, quickly spreading in all directions. A violent energy wave surged like a tide. With Lin Xian as the center, a translucent airwave swept out in all directions. Poof! Dong Ying's body stiffened, and he was shaken out of his original form. His eyes were filled with horror. "Your speed is useless against me." Lin Xian's voice was cold. "Useless?" Dong Ying sneered. "That's because you haven't seen my true strength. Now, I'll show you." The purple light on his body was like a flame, and it was dazzling. Ghost Lion Chain Shot. On his legs, purple flames rolled and formed into a lion's head. It roared ferociously and let out a clanging sound. Swoosh! Dong Ying's body disappeared. In the next moment, he was in front of Lin Xian. Both of his legs kicked continuously, and every attack caused the air to explode. It was as if countless lions were pouncing. Their roars shook the sky, and the sky was filled with purple shadows that drowned Lin Xian. An invisible pressure filled the air, and it was impenetrable. This was a very shocking scene. Those purple lions were comparable to small mountains. Just their roars were enough to make the blood of the surrounding disciples boil. Since junior brother Dong had used the Ghost Lion Chain Shot, there was no suspense in this battle. Zhao Ziqing said indifferently, "Even I wouldn't dare to take this move head-on." That Lin Xian actually didn't dodge. He's courting death. After hearing this, the surrounding disciples were excited. Zhao Ziqing was ranked 5th, and he was also a body-refining martial artist. Since he had spoken, Lin Xian would definitely die. "Go senior brother Dong." The group of disciples cheered. At the same time, Lin Xian's expression didn't change at all in the face of such a powerful move. Under the observation of purple spirit eyes, he could clearly see Dong Ying's position through the layers of purple shadows. Lin Xian's feet suddenly shook, and a golden light flashed. Lin Xian's body rose from the ground like a sharp sword, quickly piercing through everything. His 5 claws formed into the shape of a dragon, and with lightning speed, he grabbed Dong Ying's right leg. So fast, Zhao Ziqing's expression changed drastically. Even Tang Yi, Xiang Chun, and the others narrowed their eyes as they stared at Lin Xian. What? Dong Ying was even more shocked. He was known for his speed, but he actually couldn't dodge. Get lost. Dong Ying was furious. Purple light blossomed from his body and engulfed him. Powerful spiritual energy surged towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian was not afraid. His physical body had been cultivated and was already very strong. Even if he encountered a martial artist who specialized in body refinement, he would not be afraid. His body fell like a meteor, and he raised Dong Ying high in the air before smashing her to the ground. Bang! With a loud bang, the center of the arena was penetrated. A large pit several feet deep appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Debris flew everywhere, and the scene was extremely chaotic. The spectating disciples all sucked in a breath of cold air. Fan Chong, who was in the crowd, couldn't help but tremble as cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His fear of Lin Xian deepened once again. "Ah, I'm going to kill you." In the deep pit, Dong Ying screamed at the top of his lungs. This blow injured him quite badly. Some parts of his protective shield were broken, his face was covered in dust, and his hair was disheveled. He looked battered and exhausted. However, no matter how angry he was, he could not break free from Lin Xian's control. That pair of big hands was like an iron clamp, firmly locking his right leg. You're a martial artist who cultivates body refinement." Dong Ying was shocked. He was known for his speed, but he was not good at fighting in a standing position. Especially when facing a martial artist who cultivates body refinement, he needed to stay far away. Lin Xian did not answer him. Instead, he jumped up again and brought Dong Ying up into the air. "No, you can't do this." Dong Ying screamed. Bang! With another loud bang, Dong Ying's body smashed another big pit. However, this was not the end. Lin Xian moved again. Bang, bang, bang. The entire arena was about to collapse. The surrounding disciples stared blankly at this scene. Zhao Ziqing's face was extremely gloomy. He wanted nothing more than to go up and send Lin Xian flying. Dong Ying was not only a core disciple, but also a fellow disciple of Elder Shui. Lin Xian's actions were undoubtedly a provocation to him and Elder Shui. How could he tolerate this? On the side, Tang Yi looked at Lin Xian and asked in a low voice, "What do you think?" Beside him, Xiang Qin's eyes flashed. It seems that he's a martial artist who cultivates body refinement like Zhao Ziqing. However, he has comprehended sword essence. It's really hard to see through him. Maybe he hasn't shown his true strength. He's just playing around. Tang Yi's voice became more serious. Xiang Chun did not speak. Instead, he looked at Lin Xian again. In the arena, Dong Ying was dizzy from the impact. His body was about to fall apart. The purple spiritual power became dim as if it would disappear at any time. "Okay, you win." Zhao Ziqing gritted his teeth and said. He could see that Dong Ying was about to die. He could not even circulate his spiritual power. If this continued, he would definitely die. Whoosh! Lin Xian swung his arm and threw Dong Ying out. Then, he looked at Zhao Ziqing. "You're the next one." Everyone held their breaths and watched nervously. They were afraid that they would miss something. "As you wish." Zhao Ziqing sneered. He jumped up and landed on the arena, leaving 2 deep footprints on the ground. "I'll show you what body refinement is." Zhao Ziqing growled. His body turned into a shadow and rushed out. In a few steps, he was in front of Lin Xian. Bang! He threw a punch. The air trembled. Even the arena under his feet trembled as if it would collapse at any time. His arm was like a dragon. It was ferocious and powerful. It could kill everything. Lin Xian did not dodge. He waved his fist and met the attack. He wanted to test how strong his body had become. Boom! The 2 fists collided. It was as if lightning had struck down. A wave-like aura exploded and blew everything around them away. The 2 figures stood firmly like 2 boulders. Neither of them retreated. He can fight Zhao Ziqing head-on. Isn't he a sword cultivator? Why is his body so abnormal? Cries of surprise rang out one after another. Almost everyone knew that Lin Xian had comprehended sword intent, but no one had expected that he would not use his sword, but directly use his physical body to fight. That's terrifying. Is he still human? Zhao Ziqing's eyes were full of disbelief. It was no wonder. A person's energy was limited. They could only focus on one direction. Zhao Ziqing focused on body refinement. As far as he knew, sword cultivators were even more focused. They were not like Lin Xian. He did not comprehend sword essence. Instead, he focused on body refinement. What was he doing? Impossible. He must have used all his strength to block my attack. Thinking of this, Zhao Ziqing regained his composure. The aura on his body suddenly became stronger. Chapter 111. The muscles on Zhao Ziqing's body bulged like horned dragons, looking ferocious and terrifying. He roared towards the sky and used all of his strength. His arms grew to the size of a person, with tiny scales growing on them. It was as if he had turned into a demonic beast. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He felt the pressure from his opponent, but he did not resist. Instead, he retreated like lightning. Rumble. Lin Xian left a golden shadow on the spot, then dodged to the side. Puff. Zhao Ziqing was like a demonic beast, with infinite strength. His 2 fists strangled the shadow left by Lin Xian. Run? Let's see where you can run to. Zhao Ziqing looked crazy, like a demonic beast. Lin Xian did not compete with him in terms of physical strength. Instead, he took out the red flame sword, and a powerful sword intent burst out from his body. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. That was just a warm-up. Now is the time for the real battle. Lin Xian looked indifferent, like a sword god reborn. Countless sword chi surrounded his body. As he threw out his sword, the blue spirit power gathered into a sword light, forming a sword rain that covered the sky. Every sword contained the half-step sword intent, and the terrifying power made people despair. Is this the sword intent? It is indeed terrifying. Many of the core disciples' faces changed as they looked at Lin Xian with lingering fear. The long sword roared, and the sword chi soared into the sky. Just the aftermath was enough to make their hearts tremble, not to mention Zhao Ziqing, who was covered in it. Iron body arts. Facing such a terrifying attack, Zhao Ziqing's mouth twitched. He shouted, and a layer of silver cuticle quickly formed on his body. His whole body looked like it was made of copper and iron. Clang, clang, clang. The sword chi hit his body, making the sound of metal clashing. It made people's eardrums tremble. The ordinary inner disciples were frightened by this scene, and even the core disciples frowned. This kind of attack was impossible to dodge, and the only way was to take it head-on. When the sword rain disappeared, the whole arena looked like a sieve. There was not a single spot that was intact. Zhao Ziqing's body was also covered with sword marks. The dense wounds made people feel shocked. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it." Zhao Ziqing shouted crazily. Wind-ripping hand. The two gigantic palms pulled forcefully, and the air in front of them was sucked away. It was as if space was being split into two halves. That kind of power was capable of tearing people apart. Crack. Half of the arena was cut open by this force, and it continued to spread into the distance. It was too terrifying. This kind of strength was not something an ordinary pulse condensation martial artist could produce. It had already surpassed the limits of the human body. "Let's end this." Lin Xian used the phantom thunder steps and turned into an arc of lightning, quickly escaping from that space. With a slash of his sword, a thunderbolt sword chi formed in the air. With the power of the half-step sword intent, it slashed down with a loud bang. Crack, crack. No matter how strong Zhao Ziqing's body was, it was still unable to withstand the might of the half-step sword intent. His body flew backwards, and there was a half-foot-long gash in front of him. His bones could vaguely be seen. In the field, Lin Xian's black hair fluttered in the wind. His body was still filled with a terrifying sword intent. Golden arcs of electricity formed small swords around his body that constantly swam. A single sword strike had sent Zhao Ziqing flying. This kind of power was unparalleled. Several disciples quickly carried the heavily injured Zhao Ziqing away and left without looking back. One could imagine that this matter would definitely sweep through the entire inner sect. Tang Yi and Xiang Chun looked at Lin Xian in the field, their eyes filled with fighting spirit. If nothing unexpected happened, this youth would be their greatest enemy. Withdrawing his sword intent, Lin Xian greeted the two of them and then quickly left. He had obtained the core disciple spot, and now he just had to wait to enter the trial of blood and fire. In the following days, besides Lin Xian, there were also people who began to challenge the core disciples. However, their chances of winning were not high. After all, the core disciples represented the highest level of the sect, and the resources they enjoyed were far superior to the ordinary disciples. However, there was an exception. That was Shangguan Luyun, who had entered the inner sect with Lin Xian. He had defeated the 10th core disciple and obtained a spot. Moreover, Dong Ying and Zhao Ziqing had both been injured, and both of them had been forced out of the core disciple spot. 10 days later, the sect announced the final spots. Among the core disciples, apart from Lin Xian, Shangguan Luyun, and a female disciple called Yunyue, the rest were all Yuan core disciples. The remaining 5 were Murong Qianling, Zheng Jun, Kong Hao, Guo Jia, and Hong Feng. These 5 were all direct disciples of inner sect elders. They were powerful and had all entered the Sea of Soul realm. Moreover, they were all under the age of 24, completely meeting the requirements to enter the trial of blood and fire. Among them, Murong Qianling was Elder Hua's disciple, and Zheng Jun was Elder Shui's disciple. This news made Lin Xian slightly stunned. He did not expect Elder Shui to have a disciple, and one whose strength had reached the Sea of Soul realm. 5 days later, these 15 people would gather in front of the main hall and be led by the sect elders to the trial of blood and fire. Many disciples sighed helplessly, lamenting that they had no fate with the trial of blood and fire. There were also some younger disciples who were determined to participate in the next trial. As for the 15 people who had obtained the spots, they were wholeheartedly preparing for the trial. Lin Xian's cultivation these few days was very simple. He did not learn any new martial arts, but instead constantly consolidated his existing martial arts. Moreover, he used tenfold gravity and spirit wine to temper his martial arts every day. On the third day, Murong Qinling found Lin Xian and went with him to see Elder Hua. Elder Hua was the woman in palace attire that day. She was Murong Qinling's master and had also entered the trial of blood and fire. This time, she called Lin Xian and Murong Qinling over to inform them of some information inside. The trial of blood and fire opened once every 7 years. The Black Sky sect had been established for 600 years, and during this period of time, it was unknown how many times they had entered. Although the situation was not exactly the same every time, the general information was still groped out. Lin Xian was currently holding a map in his hand. It was a map of the trial of blood and fire. On it were mountains, forests, rivers, and palaces. It was like a small world. Entering the trial of blood and fire is only an opportunity. As for whether you can change your destiny inside, that will depend on your own luck. Elder Hua simply said, the inside is generally divided into 3 areas. The first is the outer area. There is not much danger there, and there are also not many precious resources. When you are in the outer area, you should be careful of the disciples of other factions. The second area is the blood forest. There are all kinds of demonic beasts hidden inside. There are 2 areas that are listed as forbidden areas. One is the Bat Cave. There is a peak 3rd-rank demonic beast hibernating inside, the Bat King. If you encounter it, there is almost no chance of escaping. The other area is a mysterious valley. No one knows what is inside. Anyone who approaches it will inexplicably die. You must not go to these 2 areas. Lin Xian memorized the 2 forbidden areas and then continued to listen. The 3rd area is the Blood Palace. That is the true treasure land. There are countless pills, weapons, and cultivation methods inside. Previously, many pulse condensation disciples entered, but when they came out, they were already Sea of Soul Realm martial artists. Not only does it save you years of bitter cultivation, but the martial artists who advance inside are clearly stronger than ordinary Sea of Soul Realm martial artists. Elder Hua slowly said. Chapter 112. Moreover, it is said that there are martial arts inheritances inside. Whoever obtains them will not only have their strength increased greatly, but it will also not be difficult for them to enter the 3 spirit realms. Elder Hua said in a deep voice. So there is such a saying. No wonder so many inner disciples want to enter. Lin Xian thought. The 3 spirit realms were divided into the harmonious spirit realm, the spirit detecting realm, and the spirit transformation realm. Elder Hua was a harmonious spirit realm martial artist. Although she looked like she was in her 30s, her actual age was more than 100 years old. After all, after entering the 3 spirit realms, a martial artist's lifespan would increase greatly. This was the most attractive part. Martial artists in the 3 spirit realms could usually live up to 300 years old. It was rumored that some old monsters in the spirit transformation realm could live up to 400 or 500 years old without a problem. Regarding the inheritance, you don't need to force it. This thing depends on luck. I want to remind you of something else. If you find any herbs, weapons, or cultivation methods inside, you can hand them over to the sect if you don't need them. Of course, the sect will also give you the same amount of spirit stones or other resources to exchange. As for cultivation methods, even if you hand them over, you can still cultivate them. Following that, Elder Hua talked about some of the resources and cultivation methods that the sect cared about. She also talked about the things that could be exchanged. Most of them were spirit stones. Among them, high-grade profound ranked martial arts could be exchanged for 500 mid-grade spirit stones. Low-grade spirit ranked martial arts could be exchanged for 3,000 mid-grade spirit stones. That was 300,000 low-grade spirit stones. Lin Xian heard this price and couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that spirit-ranked martial arts were also good things for the sect. As for other things, Elder Hua didn't say too much. After all, each entry was different. Moreover, many things had to be fought for with one's own strength. After bidding farewell to Elder Hua, Lin Xian returned to his residence. After organizing the information he obtained, Lin Xian found that the most important thing was the blood-colored palace. Not only were there many resources, There was also the legendary martial arts inheritance. Moreover, the most important point was that breaking through in the blood-colored trial ground would be better than breaking through in the outside world. This gave Lin Xian a new idea. Originally, he wanted to break through to the 9th rank meridian condensing realm in these 2 days. However, he temporarily suppressed his cultivation and prepared to break through after entering the blood-colored trial ground. Moreover, his final goal was to enter the Spirit Sea realm. This would have a great impact on his future strength. In a great hall of the Black Heaven sect, Elder Shui sat with a gloomy expression. His eyes were burning with anger. Beside him, a young man was pouring tea. 2 pieces of trash. They were actually wounded by a mere 8th stage meridian period brat. You've missed out on the right to participate in the trial by fire. His tone was so cold that the entire hall was filled with a chill. The tea-pouring youth smiled faintly. Actually, you can't blame the 2 junior brothers for this. After all, the attack power of a martial artist who has comprehended sword intent can't be estimated by his cultivation. However, master, don't worry. Even a peerless genius is nothing before he grows up. The young man's voice was filled with disdain and a strong murderous intent. Let him stay in the trial of blood and fire forever. Elder Shui looked at the disciple in satisfaction and said, killing him is a small matter. The most important thing is the inheritance in the Blood Palace. As far as I know, there is more than one type of inheritance inside. Moreover, this is the first time in the past 100 years that the seal has loosened. It will last for as long as a month. You must seize this opportunity. I understand. The young man's eyes burned with passion. Yunzhou, Ling family. As one of the 4 great families, the Ling family had 10 spots. These 10 people were the genius disciples of the Ling family and represented the future of the Ling family. As the grandson of the Ling family elder, Ling Zhe naturally received a spot. Moreover, he had reported Lin Xian's matter to the family and requested that the family kill Lin Xian. He has comprehended sword intent and is the enemy of the Ling family. Naturally, we must eliminate him. The Ling family elder coldly said, after entering the trial of blood and fire, you must eliminate him. Remember, you must do it covertly. Do not let the Black Sky sect find out. Yes, the group of Ling family disciples respectfully said. The day before departure, Lin Xian was summoned again. This time, it was the purple-robed man who had sat in the clouds that day. His name was Duanmu Qing, and he was the sect's great elder. He looked at Lin Xian and faintly sighed. I originally wanted you to enter the trial by fire next time. With your current cultivation, it is a bit too much. However, since you insist, I will not stop you. Elder Duanmu waved his sleeves, and 2 items appeared in his hands. One was a rusty armor that was damaged in some places. It looked ordinary and even a bit tattered. The other item was a yellowed talisman. These 2 items were obtained from the trial of blood and fire. This armor can defend against all attacks below the Sea of Soul Realm. Even against a Sea of Soul Realm martial artist, it can withstand a few attacks. With it, as long as you don't enter the forbidden area, your life will not be a problem. Elder Duanmu said in a deep voice. You have comprehended sword intent. If nothing unexpected happens, your future achievements will definitely surpass us. Therefore, there are some places where there is no need to take risks. As for this item, it is a high-grade talisman. It can kill a Sea of Soul Realm martial artist with 1 strike. However, it can only be used once. Unless it is absolutely necessary, do not use it. Lin Xian received the 2 treasures and respectfully said, Thank you, Great Elder. This disciple will definitely return safely. Time quickly passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day of departure. Early in the morning, the sky was overcast. A fine drizzle floated in the sky, shrouding the surroundings with a hazy feeling. Lin Xian and the other disciples participating in the trial of blood arrived early to wait in front of the main hall. Among these disciples, the ones with the highest cultivation were Murong Qianling and Zheng Jun, who had reached the 2nd layer of the Sea of Soul Realm. The other 3 personal disciples were at the 1st layer of the Sea of Soul Realm. The head disciple among the core disciples, Wan Jianxing, was also at the 1st layer of the Sea of Soul Realm. The other disciples were at the 9th layer of the Meridian Condensing stage. Among them, Lin Xian's cultivation was the weakest at the 8th layer of the meridian condensing stage. However, no core disciple dared to underestimate him. After all, he defeated Zhao Ziqing and Dong Ying, and his strength could be ranked in the top 5 among the core disciples. What was surprising was that Shangguan Liuyun's cultivation had also reached the 9th layer of the meridian condensing stage. His aura was as heavy as a mountain. Looks like everyone has a fortuitous encounter, Lin Xian thought to himself as he looked at Shangguan Liuyun. Feeling Lin Xian's gaze, Shangguan Liuyun nodded slightly. The two of them weren't familiar with each other, but after all, they had fought once and had a certain understanding of each other's temperament. Lin Xian, this time, I definitely won't lose to you. Fighting spirit surged in Shangguan Liuyun's eyes. I won't either. Lin Xian's words were filled with confidence. Humph. An indifferent cold snort was heard, containing disdain and a hint of killing intent. Shangguan Liuyun was silent, and Lin Xian looked towards the source of the sound. In front, a young man with an evil smile stood with his hands behind his back. As his eyes opened and closed, there was a flicker of light. Among them, he inadvertently looked towards Lin Xian. That gaze was like looking down on an ant. Zhang Jun. Lin Xian's heart sank slightly. Among these people, the only one he was wary of was this Zhang Jun. Not only was he a martial artist at the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean realm, he was also Elder Shue's disciple. Elder Shue hated Lin Xian to the bone, and this Zhang Jun would probably make a move against him. Chapter 113. As long as I enter the spiritual sea realm, I won't be afraid of any of them. Lin Xian was confident. The only thing he lacked was time to cultivate. Moreover, as far as he knew, after entering the trial grounds, the location would be randomly teleported. As long as his luck wasn't too bad, he wouldn't meet Zhang Jun in the early stages. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian calmed himself down and waited quietly. An hour later, a few powerful auras appeared. 5 elders broke through the air and landed in front of the main hall. Among them were Elder Duanmu, Elder Hua, Elder Shui, and 2 other sect elders. The 5 of them were like 5 mountains, blocking the crowd. Greetings, elders, the disciples said respectfully. Elder Duanmu waved his sleeves, and a white jade-like spirit boat appeared in front of everyone. It was more than 100 feet long and was decorated like a small palace. Let's go, Elder Duanmu said in a deep voice. Suddenly, dozens of figures leaped up and entered the white jade-like spirit boat. A dazzling light flashed, and the white jade-like spirit boat turned into a ray of light, quickly disappearing into the horizon. At the same time, the other forces in Cloud State also moved to the trial grounds. In the center of Cloud State, there was a cloud sea valley. It was covered in clouds all year round and was like a fairyland. There were few people here, but at this moment, the Cloud Sea Valley was very lively. Martial artists in different clothes gathered in the valley. Some sat cross-legged to rest, while others whispered to each other. Suddenly, a light flashed in the sky, penetrating the layers of clouds and shining into the valley. It was like a meteor, quickly falling down. Rumble. When the light was about to reach the ground, it suddenly stopped and revealed its original form. A huge spirit boat that was more than 100 feet long floated in the air. It was pure white, like a fine jade. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few figures jumped down from it. Then, the white jade-like spirit boat flashed and disappeared. This group of people was naturally Lin Xian and the others. After half a day of high-speed flight, they finally arrived at the Cloud Sea Valley. Brother Duanmu, how have you been? Just as Lin Xian and the others landed, several voices rang out. They were all greetings, and most of them were looking for the sect elders. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Xian looked around. Many forces from all directions were looking at Lin Xian's disciples with hostility. However, the elders of the various clans were like old friends who had not seen each other for many years, and they all came to greet them. Let's find a place to rest first. Within the younger generation, Murong Qianling and Zhang Jun's cultivation were the highest, so they were temporarily the leaders. The group of people found a clean place and settled down. So many experts. Shangguan Liuyun sighed. Lin Xian nodded. He had just swept a glance and discovered that many people's auras were very powerful. A few of them were even not weaker than Morong Qianling and the others. There were more than a dozen Sea of Soul Realm warriors, and this was under the condition that not all of them had come. Tang Yi said to Lin Xian, "The duration of this trial is the longest in the past 100 years. Therefore, there are more participants than before." No wonder. Lin Xian and the others came to a realization. Then, many disciples laughed bitterly. It turned out that they had caught the most special time. At this moment, light flashed in the sky again. A huge lotus-shaped flying object appeared in the sky, accompanied by a wave-like pressure. With a flash of light, the huge lotus disappeared, and a group of people appeared in its place. A few elders with deep auras were welcomed away by the other old monsters. The remaining younger generation walked towards Lin Xian and the others. The few people in front had auras like the sea, unfathomable. "Morong, long time no see," a handsome young man said with a smile, with a trace of admiration in his eyes. "This is Xie Changfeng, second sky of Sea of Soul Realm cultivation, belonging to the direct disciple category," Tang Yi said in a low voice. The bronze-skinned youth beside him is Yuan Fei, Lotus Glory Sect's chief disciple. Everyone looked at the youth and saw that his body was no different from an adult. His muscles were like dragons, full of strength. Feeling the gaze of Lin Xian and the others, the youth called Yuan Fei turned his head and grinned. Everyone was shocked. This youth's gaze was like a ferocious beast, making their hearts palpitate. "Senior Martial Brother Tang, who are the outstanding disciples of the other sects? Introduce them to us," a core disciple said. Tang Yi nodded and said in a low voice, "In the group of people in the east, the one wearing purple with a veil on her face is Zixia Fairy. She is also a genius on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Besides Zixia sect is the Ling clan of the 4 major clans. The leader is Ling Feng, whose strength is not weaker than the direct disciples of the 3 major sections. Moreover, he has a ferocious personality, so you must not provoke him." Lin Xian looked at the youth a few more times. Suddenly, he saw Ling Zhe in the crowd and was slightly shocked. "Ling Zhe is here. I think the Ling clan will also make a move against me." Lin Xian pondered. Seems like this trial is destined to not be peaceful. 2 hours later, everyone had arrived. The 3 major sects, the 4 major clans, and some rogue cultivators had all entered. These disciples walked forward, waiting for the trial land of blood to open. Among them, Wang Jianxing, Yuan Fei, and the other disciples' gazes collided, creating sparks in the air. These people did not have anyone else in their eyes, so Lin Xian and the others were completely ignored. This was not surprising. After all, these people had already entered the Spirit Sea realm and had no interest in core disciples who were still in the pulse condensation stage. As for a genius like Lin Xian who had comprehended sword intent, because he had just risen, his reputation was basically only spread within the sect. It was normal for the disciples of other sects not to know him. Of course, there were exceptions, such as the Ling clan disciples and Zheng Jun, who all looked at Lin Xian with an unfriendly expression. Lin Xian sneered in his heart and ignored them. Not long after, an indescribable aura rushed over, creating ripples in the valley. The surrounding fog dispersed, and the surrounding void trembled. There was a faint flash of lightning and thunder. A moment later, a crack more than 100 feet long appeared out of thin air, as if a giant abyss beast had opened its mouth and was about to swallow everyone. When the crack stabilized, the elders of each sect formed seals, and a whirlpool-like entrance slowly formed. "Okay, you can go in now," the elders of each sect said. Immediately, nearly 100 disciples moved and entered the crack, disappearing from sight. The entire valley suddenly became much quieter, leaving only the elders of each sect in their original places. Among them, the elders of several aristocratic families had their eyes flickering. It was unknown what they were thinking. Zixia sect's great elder also looked at the crack in the void with a complicated expression and sighed slightly. In a hidden place outside the valley, several mysterious figures in black robes gathered together and let out hoarse laughter. "They have successfully entered. As long as we can obtain that item, the time it takes for our sect to revive will be greatly reduced." There was a trace of excitement in their voices. After a few more chuckles, The mysterious people in black robes disappeared. Chapter 114. It felt like an instant, yet it also felt like billions of years had passed. With a flash of white light, Lin Xian's figure appeared. This was an unfamiliar place surrounded by trees. There was a river flowing in the distance, and there were cries of apes and beasts. Everywhere was filled with vitality. What dense spiritual qi! Lin Xian took a deep breath and felt the spiritual qi in his body circulate faster. No wonder so many people want to enter. Just the spiritual qi here is several times denser than outside. What a good place. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes and soul power to scan the surroundings. Golden thread grass. Lin Xian was pleasantly surprised. His body flashed and disappeared. A dozen meters away, there was a palm-sized plant with 2 rows of symmetrical leaves. Each leaf seemed to be made of gold, shining brightly. This is a rank 3 spiritual grass. I didn't expect to see it everywhere here. Lin Xian stored it in his storage ring. Spiritual grasses had different grades. Different grades of spiritual grasses could be used to create different grades of pills. This rank 3 spiritual grass was considered a relatively high-grade herb in Yunzhou. In the outside world, it could only be found in the depths of Taihang mountain range. It seems like it won't be long before I can refine a new spiritual wine. Lord Alcohol's voice sounded in Lin Xian's heart. According to the information, this is only the periphery. I wonder what good things there will be in the blood-colored palace. Lin Xian was filled with anticipation. Lord Alcohol used Lin Xian's soul power to sense the surroundings and said slowly, "You'd better break through to the Spirit Sea Realm before going to the central region. Don't worry. With such a treasured place, breaking through shouldn't be difficult." Lin Xian changed into a bolt of lightning and shuttled through the forest. With the help of his purple spirit eyes and soul power, he plucked a lot of spiritual grasses. Whoosh! When he reappeared, Lin Xian was near the river. There was a hydra flower there that was incomparably beautiful. Lin Xian flashed and arrived at the riverside. He bent down and was about to pluck it. At this moment, a few angry shouts came from behind him. "Stop! Get lost! Put down the spiritual grass or die!" Lin Xian had long sensed the presence of these people, but in a place like this, it was all about speed. How could he let go just because of a few threats? Lin Xian gently plucked the water flower and placed it into a jade box. Then, with a flip of his hand, he put it into his storage ring. "Brat, you're courting death." The people behind him saw Lin Xian leisurely put away the spiritual grass and immediately shouted, "He's actually at the 8th stage of the meridian condensation period. With this kind of strength, he still dares to come to the trial by blood and fire. He's really looking for death. Judging from that brat's storage ring's grade, there must be a lot of good stuff inside. Why don't we?" Several people sneered. The death rate in the bloody trial grounds was extremely high, so these disciples could kill people without any scruples. As long as they did it properly and weren't caught, no one could say anything. Of course, if the elders in the outside world knew about this, it would be a different situation. These people saw that Lin Xian was alone and his cultivation was low, so they immediately had evil intentions. One of the disciples had the word Ling painted on his chest. He looked at Lin Xian with a ferocious expression. The Ling family disciple knew that Lin Xian had comprehended sword intent and was afraid of an accident, so he ordered everyone to attack together. "Everyone attack together. Don't give this brat any chance." The 3 meridian stage 9 disciples' bodies bloomed with light. They attacked one after another, and a sky full of energy rushed towards Lin Xian. Under purple spirit eyes' powerful observation, these people's bodies were full of flaws. Lin Xian's fingertips emitted sword light, turning into lightning as he stabbed out. It was like a golden lightning bolt streaking through the air. The sword chi surged and instantly pierced through the 3 people. Pu. Lin Xian took the 3 people's storage rings and kicked them into the river. Killing people here was tacitly allowed, but if they were discovered, there would be a lot of trouble when they left. The 3 corpses fell into the river, creating 3 splashes. Poochie. A few ferocious-looking demonic beasts appeared on the surface of the water. They opened their blood-colored mouths and instantly devoured the few people. Blood immediately dyed the river red. These demonic beasts looked like lizards and crocodiles. They were about 2 meters long and covered in grayish-brown scales. Their sharp teeth were like saws that emitted a faint light. These are mutated water crocodiles. See if there are any demon crystals? Lord Alcohol reminded. Lin Xian didn't hesitate. Golden lightning flashed in his hand. He waved it out, and lightning surged as golden lightning arcs crackled. Bang! 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 The 3 mutated water crocodiles were sent flying. They rolled on the ground, and their scales were charred black. Roar, roar! These water demons were furious as they let out low roars. Their eyes were suffused with a red glow as they viciously pounced at Lin Xian. Lin Xian was surprised. He hadn't thought that the skin of these monstrous beasts would be so thick. His attack just now would have seriously injured even a 9th-stage meridian condensation martial artist, but these mutated water crocodiles had only rolled a few times. Interesting. Lin Xian condensed a sword beam in his hand and swung it out like lightning, forming a lightning bolt in the air. Poochie! Poochie! The lightning sword was extremely sharp as it pierced a thumb-sized bloody hole in the mutated water crocodiles. After a few more slashes, the water demons collapsed to the ground, dead. Lin Xian quickly peeled them open and found a dark red crystal the size of a fingernail. Is this a demon crystal? Lin Xian fiddled with it in his hand. Although the demon crystal was small, it contained powerful energy. Not only that, there were wisps of demonic aura lingering around it. It was extremely demonic. Let's see if we can gather tin. If possible, I can refine a flask of crystal vein wine for you. I guarantee that you will break through after drinking it, Lord Alcohol said with a smile. Really? Lin Xian was delighted. He put away the 3 demon crystals and kicked the mutated crocodile's corpse into the water to attract more water demons. Indeed, as the blood spread, more figures appeared under the water. A few impatiently went ashore and attacked Lin Xian. Lin Xian brandished his sword beam and fought with the mutated water crocodiles. The surging energy attracted the nearby warriors. Who is this person? He's so powerful. Although his cultivation level is low, his sword art is too sharp. A few pairs of eyes stared at Lin Xian nearby as they whispered to each other. They didn't show themselves but hid in the forest. From the looks of it, he should be collecting demon crystals. Could it be that he wants to devour them? Impossible. Such demonic beasts need a special mystic technique to refine them. If ordinary warriors absorb them, they will be assimilated by the demonic aura. A few people were puzzled. Perhaps this person has such a mystic technique. Should we take action? Let's keep watching. I feel that his sword art has an inexplicable power. Just as these people were hesitating, a powerful aura rushed over. The aura was like the sea, surging violently and without any concealment. It was incomparably arrogant. Not good. It's a spirit sea realm warrior. Retreat. The expressions of the people hiding in the shadows changed drastically as they fled. These people were all Meridian Condensation Stage 9 warriors, and some were even at the peak of the Meridian Condensation Stage. However, compared to a Spirit Sea Realm warrior, they were nothing. Once one entered the Spirit Sea Realm, their strength would increase tremendously. Furthermore, they would have the ability to release spirit energy and manifest spirit energy. It was not something a Meridian Condensation Stage warrior could compare with. In a short moment, this Sea of Soul Realm martial artist quickly arrived near the river and locked onto Lin Xian. Chapter 115. Lin Xian had long sensed the presence of people nearby, but they were all at the 9th level of the Meridian Condensing Stage and couldn't affect him. When the Sea of Spirit Realm martial artist arrived, Lin Xian's face changed. At this time, a huge mutated crocodile appeared in the river. It was more than 10 meters long, and its demonic chi soared to the sky. As soon as this crocodile came ashore, it opened its bloody mouth and spat out a column of water. Lin Xian's body flashed and dodged the attack. He didn't immediately counterattack because the Sea of Spirit Realm martial artist was already nearby. Sure enough, a figure landed on the ground and let out a light sound of surprise. What a thick demonic chi. I just happen to be lacking a water-type demonic beast core. It seems that the heavens are treating me well. This was a young man wearing a long gown. His appearance was ordinary, but his eyes were incomparably sharp. He looked at Lin Xian and coldly shouted, "Little brat, you can get lost." Lin Xian's mouth curved into a smile, and his voice was firm. "This is mine. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." The ordinary young man sneered. His aura suddenly bloomed like a volcano erupting, sweeping out in all directions. The young man looked down at Lin Xian. In his opinion, as long as he released his sea of spirit realm aura, this little brat would be scared witless. However, Lin Xian still smiled. His body was like a boulder, unmoved. As for the demonic beast, it felt this aura and growled, becoming extremely uneasy. Maybe he doesn't know about the sea of spirit realm. The ordinary young man frowned, and his heart was abnormally angry. Normally, when those meridian condensing stage martial artists saw him, which one of them didn't speak humbly and respectfully? Looks like I need to remind him. The ordinary young man's face was gloomy. "Kid, I'm a sea of spirit realm martial artist. Aren't you afraid?" Finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a huge, hazy palm of light appeared and slapped at the crocodile. Pong! The crocodile screamed, and its body was smashed into pieces. Blood splattered all over the ground. "You should be scared now." The ordinary young man killed the crocodile with one palm, and his heart was satisfied. He wanted to enjoy Lin Xian's frightened expression. However, Lin Xian only frowned. Other than that, there was no other change. The young man didn't know that Lin Xian's heart was also in turmoil. It was his first time witnessing the power of a Sea of Soul Realm warrior, and he yearned for it. But it would be impossible for him to give up on this crocodile. "Scram!" Lin Xian shouted coldly. He was disgusted by the young man's expression. He could tell at a glance that he was a bastard who bullied the weak. The young man was slightly taken aback. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Lin Xian would actually dare to scold him. Who was he? Sea of Souls Realm martial artist. And Lin Xian was only a little disciple at the 8th stage of meridian condensation. Does he have something to rely on? The young man was slightly startled. He quickly scanned his surroundings. Some aristocratic families would indeed send powerful cultivators to protect them. After the young man scanned the surroundings, he didn't find anyone. His face instantly darkened. A little pulse condensation period martial artist dared to insult him. How could he not be angry? "Kid, your fate will be even worse than that monster beast's." The young man's palm glowed, and he suddenly waved it out. A half-meter-long palm of light flew out, quickly moving through the air. Wherever it passed, grass and trees would be torn apart. It was as if a small mountain was crashing down. That pressure was frightening. Phantom thunder step? Lin Xian's body flashed, and he disappeared from his original position, reappearing in another direction. The place where he had been standing had been smashed into pieces. Not bad. The young man's eyes flashed with a cold light. "If this is what you rely on, then you can go die." Before his voice faded, the young man's body disappeared, and he reappeared in front of Lin Xian. So fast, Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He could only catch a trace of an afterimage. This kind of speed had completely surpassed the limits of meridian condensation. No wonder this young man was so arrogant. A pair of palms appeared above his head, and a violent surge of spiritual power gushed out like lava. Scram! Lin Xian revolved the spiritual power in his body to the extreme, and at the same time activated the half-step sword intent to resist the palm of light. Sword chi rushed out, revealing its sharpness. It was as if a divine sword had been unsheathed, causing people's minds to be frustrated. What? Although the young man's cultivation was strong, his willpower was ordinary. Facing a sword intent at such a close distance, he simply couldn't withstand it. Pong! The palm of light had just condensed, but it scattered in his panic. His body moved, and he quickly left Lin Xian. Sword intent. This is sword intent. The young man cried out, and at the same time, there was a deep jealousy in his eyes. This kind of concept was incomparably ethereal. How could an 8th-level meridian condensation kid comprehend sword intent? Although jealous, the young man didn't attack. The fear in his heart had the upper hand. Lin Xian's cultivation wasn't high, but he was like a sword demon. His murderous aura was astonishing, and his eyes flashed with an orange light. It's just a 2nd-level monster. What's the harm in letting you have it? The young man snorted and ran into the distance. Lin Xian had already made plans to fight with his life on the line, but he didn't expect his opponent to run away. He didn't dare to be careless. With sword intent on his body, he slashed the deadwater crocodile and sucked the walnut-sized monster crystal into his hand. Against a spirit sea realm martial artist, it's still too difficult. It seems like I need to quickly advance. Don't worry. With this monster crystal and spirit grass, I can quickly concoct a spirit wine suitable for you, Lord Alcohol said in a low voice. Lin Xian nodded. At the same time, he raised his spirits and ran into the distance. At the same time, in the other regions of the Trial of Bloodland, various things were happening. Some powerful disciples walked out of the outer regions and entered the Blood Forest. Their speed was several times faster than ordinary disciples. Among them, Murong Qianling, Tang Yi, and the others were carefully moving forward. Zhang Jun was moving with other disciples. In the dense forest, a young man in white slashed out with his saber. Saber chi spanned more than 10 meters, cleaving a monster in front of him in half. Behind him, Ling Zhe and the others looked on enviously. In another direction, a group of young girls in purple walked through the forest. One of them was actually Fairy Zixia. Her purple clothes fluttered, and her face was covered with a veil. She looked like a fairy descending. But if one looked carefully, they would realize that the leader of this group wasn't her, but an ordinary girl. The others were faintly afraid of this girl. Even Fairy Zixia had a trace of fear in her eyes. "Where's the Bat Cave?" the ordinary girl asked. "Southeast direction," Fairy Zixia said respectfully from the side. This group of people actually wanted to go to the Bat Cave. That was a forbidden area of the trial ground. Apart from this mysterious girl, there were other hidden forces. A disciple of the Chen family, who was running, suddenly stopped. Black fog rolled around his body. The disciple screamed. His scream was terrifying, scaring away some nearby wild beasts. Fortunately, there was no one nearby, or they would have been scared away. Moments later, the Chen family disciple stopped screaming and slowly stood up. His movements were somewhat stiff, and his eyes flickered with a red light. Hee. The disciple sneered a few times before disappearing into the forest. Chapter 116. Lin Xian wasn't in a hurry to enter the Scarlet Forest. Instead, he cultivated in the periphery. When night fell, Lin Xian started a bonfire by the river. He killed a wild beast and placed it on the fire rack. He took out a small purple gourd and drank a small mouthful. Then, he closed his eyes and condensed his qi to refine it. Lin Xian drank the spirit wine that Lord Alcohol had just concocted. It contained 10 demonic crystal cores and a few rank 3 spiritual herbs. It contained a lot of energy. If not for the fact that Lin Xian had undergone 10-fold training and strengthened his body, he wouldn't dare to drink it. Lin Xian's body emitted a faint light. He quickly circulated the longevity art and drank the spirit wine. After a while, he opened his eyes and felt that the spiritual qi in his body had increased by a lot. Lin Xian tore a piece of meat and ate it slowly. After a while, Lin Xian ate a piece of meat and drank a mouthful of spirit wine to refine it. Finally, the spirit meridians in his body rumbled. Under the impact of this huge force, the 9th spirit meridian was finally unimpeded. At this point, Lin Xian's 9 spirit meridians were all opened. The 9 meridians shook together like raging waves hitting the shore. Multicolored light soared into the sky as if a god had descended. Lin Xian felt the abundant energy in his body and couldn't help but clench his fists. He was now confident that he could fight with a martial artist at the first sky of the spiritual sea realm. He was one step closer to the spiritual sea realm. Lin Xian spat out a mouthful of turbid qi. He drank another mouthful of spirit wine and found that the effect had decreased significantly. If he wanted to break through to the spiritual sea realm, he would need to change to another type of wine. Lord Alcohol said leisurely. I'll give you the materials. When you're done, I'll start refining. Lin Xian's mind stirred. Some materials appeared in his mind. They were obviously a level higher than the spirit wine. After memorizing these materials, Lin Xian relaxed and tasted the game. GG. Roar roar. A few black shadows flashed nearby, making rustling sounds. Lin Xian sneered in his heart. He had just advanced and wanted to test his battle strength. He didn't expect someone to come knocking on his door so quickly. Who? Whoosh. Those figures seemed to be unable to hold themselves back and began to move towards the bonfire. GG. The figures approached carefully and looked at Lin Xian cautiously. Lin Xian was stunned. His raised hand stopped in midair. He stared blankly in front of him and suddenly made a face. It turned out that these black shadows were actually a few small white monkeys. They were about half the height of a human and looked very cute. Seeing Lin Xian's grimace, the 5 little monkeys were obviously shocked, but after discovering that there was no danger, they all copied Lin Xian and made grimace. Lin Xian was also amused by these little creatures. He realized that other than looking at him, these little monkeys were also staring at the barbecued meat on the fire. Monkeys like meat too? Lin Xian was puzzled, but he subconsciously tore a piece and threw it over. GG. GG. The few little monkeys fought over it and quickly finished the meat. Then, they stared at Lin Xian with their big eyes, trying to please him. Lin Xian found it funny and threw the rest of the barbecued meat over. After a while, only bones were left on the ground. However, these little monkeys still looked at Lin Xian pitifully. No more. Lin Xian spread his hands and pointed at the bonfire, making an expression that said, I can't do anything about it. Unexpectedly, the few monkeys discussed for a while, and then began to run around looking for game. Lin Xian's eyes glowed orange. He saw everything clearly and was worried that these little monkeys would encounter danger. Roar. A demon wolf with green wings was angered by the few little creatures. It roared and was about to pounce. Lin Xian frowned and was about to save them. In the next moment, he was stunned again. The few cute monkeys suddenly grew in size. They were about 2 to 3 meters tall, and their muscles were as firm as small hills. After a series of punches and kicks, they killed the demon wolf with green wings. Then, they happily carried the wolf's corpse to Lin Xian. Phew! The few monkeys shrank in size and looked adorable. The corners of Lin Xian's mouth twitched as he secretly swallowed his saliva. The trial of blood was truly a terrifying place. Even cute little monkeys could instantly turn into demons. Could these monkeys be of that species? Lord Alcohol suddenly said before muttering to himself, That's not right. There's something different. Lin Xian listened for a while but didn't understand. With the monkeys constantly urging him, he began to quickly deal with the azure-winged demon wolf. Not long after, pieces of wolf meat were placed on the fire rack, emitting crackling sounds. The white monkey sat opposite Lin Xian and waited anxiously. Time gradually passed as the wolf meat began to turn yellow. A layer of grease seeped out and fell into the fire, emitting sizzling sounds. The fragrance of meat wafted over as the golden wolf meat gradually took shape. Lin Xian divided the wolf meat and handed it to them. The few little monkeys swept through the wolf like a whirlwind, and soon, the wolf was completely devoured. GG. GG. The white monkeys danced in joy, and from time to time, they would pull Lin Xian's trousers as though they were inviting him. You want me to follow you? Lin Xian asked. GG. The monkeys quickly nodded and led the way. Although the monkeys were small and cute, they weren't slow at all. With the help of tree branches, they constantly rippled through the air. Lin Xian had to use his footwork to keep up with them. After running for an unknown period of time, the monkeys stopped. Lin Xian's figure flashed and appeared behind them. In front of him was a small cave surrounded by vines. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. GG. GG. The monkeys pointed at the cave and shouted, as though inviting Lin Xian in as a guest. Lin Xian had his sword intent augmented by Lord Alcohol's secret guidance, so he wasn't afraid at all. Without any hesitation, he walked in. It was very dry inside, but it wasn't dark. Light shone from an unknown place. Lin Xian secretly used his footwork without making a sound. After walking for a while, he arrived at a rather spacious space. There were stone tables and stone stools in the surroundings. There was even a stone bed in the corner. It was obvious that someone had once lived here. Lin Xian didn't move. Instead, he activated his purple spirit eyes and soul power to secretly scan the entire space. In the end, he didn't find anything special. Instead, there were some bones and tattered items in the corners. However, no ordinary person would pay attention to these things. Gigi, Gigi. To his surprise, the monkeys ran to the pile of bones and shouted nonstop. One of the monkeys even pulled out a rusty gauntlet from the pile of bones. The white monkey wobbled over to Lin Xian and handed the rusty gauntlet over. Lin Xian smiled and took it. With it in hand, Lin Xian's expression changed slightly. Heavy, very heavy. The gauntlet was heavier than he had imagined. He needed to circulate his spirit power to hold it firmly. Lin Xian's expression was solemn as he carefully looked at the gauntlet in his hand. Not only did it cover his forearm, but it also covered his palm. There were faint, strange runes engraved on his palm. This thing, could it be? Lord Alcohol's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 117. Lord Alcohol looked at the gauntlet in front of him and exclaimed softly, "Xiao Xuanzi, this is good stuff," Lord Alcohol said with a smile. "This?" Lin Xian looked at it carefully before saying, "I think I've seen the runes on it before. By the way, the armor and talisman paper that Elder Duanmu gave me have similar runes on them." Lin Xian touched the armor on his body and took out the yellowed talisman paper. He silently compared it. "This is the inscription I told you about," Lord Alcohol slowly said. "Although most of its spirituality has been lost over time, the remaining power is not something ordinary people can withstand. From the looks of it, I can still use it a few more times." Lin Xian's eyes lit up. He had long wanted to see the power of the inscription. He couldn't wait to put it on and test it out. "Don't use it here. Try it when we get out." Lord Alcohol stopped Lin Xian from doing so. Lin Xian put away the bronze gauntlet and walked to the pile of bones in the corner. There were still some bronze fragments on the ground, but the runes on them were either cracked or destroyed. None of them were intact. "Let's go. These are all useless." Lord Alcohol sighed. Lin Xian stood up and waved at the group of white monkeys. "Thank you. I'm leaving." Gigi, Gigi. The monkeys jumped up and down to stop Lin Xian. One of them ran off like the last time. "There's something else?" Lin Xian was puzzled as he stopped in his tracks. This time, the little monkey actually carried an egg and walked over shakily. The egg was bluish-white in color and was about a foot tall. There was nothing abnormal about it. "For me?" Lin Xian asked. "Gigi, Gigi." The few monkeys nodded immediately, afraid that Lin Xian wouldn't want it. Lin Xian carefully took it and placed it in his storage ring. The few little monkeys at the side patted their chests in a human-like manner, their faces full of lingering fear. Lin Xian checked the area once more, but he didn't find anything else. He waved his hand and left. The group of little monkeys were also chirping nonstop. Their eyes revealed a crafty light as if they were very excited. After leaving the monkey cave, Lin Xian arrived at a secluded area. He couldn't wait to take out the bronze gauntlets and put them on. "Circulate your spirit energy and activate the inscription on your palm," Lord Alcohol instructed. Lin Xian nodded. He raised his left hand and aimed it at the mountain in front of him, silently channeling his spiritual energy. Blue spiritual energy rushed towards the rune in the center, and in the next moment, a violent energy fluctuation spread out from his left hand. Boom! A green energy beam shot out, forming a dazzling light. It roared out, enveloping everything in front of it. Strong winds blew in all directions, and gravel flew everywhere. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Lin Xian let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. His left arm was trembling slightly, accompanied by a heart-wrenching pain. When everything calmed down, Lin Xian looked up. The area in front of him was barren, and there was nothing left. Even the mountain had been pierced through. A pitch-black hole appeared in front of him, and there were wisps of white smoke at the edges. Hiss! Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. This attack had far exceeded his imagination. Its power had probably exceeded that of a martial artist at the first firmament of the spiritual sea realm. However, the side effects were obvious. Lin Xian's arm still ached faintly. Next time, I'll use my spirit energy to protect my arm. It should be able to prevent this pain. Lin Xian rubbed his arm, realizing that he had been careless this time. Your body's strength has exceeded that of a meridian condensation realm martial artist. It's already comparable to a spiritual sea realm martial artist, Lord Alcohol said. An ordinary meridian condensation realm martial artist would probably have their entire arm crippled after using this attack. That's a powerful weapon. Lin Xian realized that he no longer had to fear spiritual sea realm martial artists. Lin Xian didn't plan on staying in the periphery any longer. After all, the resources here were limited. Tomorrow morning, we'll set off for the Blood Forest. The Blood Forest was different from the forests in the periphery. The trees here were very tall, with luxuriant foliage that covered the sky. Furthermore, there were hidden dangers everywhere in the forest. If one wasn't careful, they would lose their lives. In one of the places, there was a golden python guarding a heart-shaped flower. A young martial artist wielding a spear was fighting with the golden python. This young man was Black Heaven Sect Shangguan Luyun. He faced the golden python alone without any fear. Spear like a dragon. The young man's face was cold, and his eyes were like lightning. The spear in his hand trembled, and he suddenly stabbed out. The 10-foot-long spear beam pulsed, stirring up the wind and clouds. It was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea, extremely ferocious. The golden python was huge, but it was very nimble. With a twist of its body, it dodged the attack. At the same time, it opened its mouth, and its scarlet tongue shot out like a poisonous arrow. Puff, puff, puff. Shangguan Luyun leaped and flew 40 to 50 feet away. A bowl-sized hole appeared where he was standing. Traces of green liquid adhered to it, constantly corroding it. Soon, the hole became the size of a water jar, and it was still expanding. What a fierce poison! Shangguan Luyun's pupils constricted. I can only use that move. Spear power like a mountain. With a thrust of the spear, the void distorted. It was as if a mountain was pressing down from the sky, causing the void to tremble. The golden python's tail quickly twitched and struck the huge mountain, producing a rumbling sound. However, it had no effect. Bang! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the earth trembled. The golden python's head shattered, and it flew out. Phew! Shangguan Luyun gasped for breath, but his eyes flashed with excitement. Pa! Pa! A crisp applause rang out, followed by a burst of laughter. Wonderful! Truly wonderful! I didn't expect a mere pulse condensation realm martial artist to be able to stab out such a stunning spear. When Shangguan Luyun heard this voice, his body trembled. He did not know when this person had arrived nearby, which made him feel very uneasy. He turned his head and saw a person walking out of the forest. He was wearing a long robe and had an ordinary appearance. However, his eyes were extremely sharp. All right, you can scram now. The ordinary youth sneered. His gaze swept across Shangguan Luyun and directly looked at the heart-shaped red flower. Shangguan Luyun frowned. It was not easy for him to kill the golden python. It was all for this heart-shaped flower. How could he give up? Thinking of this, the spirit energy on his body burst forth. The long spear in his hand was ready to attack. Humph! You overestimate yourself. The ordinary youth snorted coldly. His eyes focused, and the aura on his body surged out like a vast ocean, sweeping in all directions. Spirit Sea Realm. Shangguan Luyun's expression suddenly became very ugly. Why aren't you scramming? The youth waved his sleeve, creating a gust of wind. It formed a sharp wind blade in the air and attacked Shangguan Luyun. Bang! Bang! The wind blade was too fast. Shangguan Luyun had no time to dodge. He struck out with his spear and collided with the wind blade. Puff! The power of the Spirit Sea Realm was not something a pulse condensation realm martial artist could resist. Shangguan Luyun's body kept retreating, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared at the youth in front of him, preparing to launch his strongest attack and perish together with him. As if sensing his intentions, the youth smiled disdainfully. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." After saying that, a dazzling light appeared on his palm, and a terrifying power lingered around him. Seeing that Shangguan Luyun was about to lose his life under the palm of light, another figure flew out from the dense forest. A sharp sword chi slashed towards the youth, making a rapid sound in the air. "Those who bully my fellow disciples die." The person's voice contained a cold killing intent. Chapter 118. A figure landed on the ground, interrupting the youth's attack. "Stinking brat, it's you." The youth's expression turned ugly, and his channeling spirit power also slightly stagnated. On the other side, Shangguan Luyun also saw the appearance of the newcomer and exclaimed, "Lin Xian." The newcomer was indeed Lin Xian. He slowly walked in front of Shangguan Luyun, took out a pill, and handed it over. "As a Sea of Soul Realm martial artist, you only know how to hide in the dark. If I were you, I would have killed myself already." Lin Xian sneered. Shangguan Luyun was a bit worried. Lin Xian angered the opponent like this, which would only make their situation more dangerous. "Brat, I spared your life last time. This time, you can go down and meet the King of Hell." The youth was abnormally angry, especially when he thought about how he was actually scared away by Lin Xian last time. He felt like he was going crazy. "Two ants, I can casually crush them to death." The youth's spirit power surged, and his palms emitted light. "Lin Xian, if you and I work together, we might have a chance of victory." Shangguan Liuyun's expression was abnormally grave. "Later, we'll directly use our strongest move. If it doesn't work, we'll escape." Lin Xian's mouth raised into a smile. He patted Shangguan Liuyun's shoulder and said softly, "No need to be so troublesome. Watch me." Finished speaking, he walked up alone. "Scum like you, who knows how many weak people you'll bully while you're alive? It's better if you die." Lin Xian didn't have any good impression of this kind of person. Crazy, Lin Xian must be crazy. Shangguan Liuyun's head was a bit dizzy. The opponent was a Sea of Soul Realm martial artist, and Lin Xian actually berated him like this. Sure enough, the youth's expression was malevolent. He quickly pushed out a huge palm of light, sweeping in all directions. "Die for me." The silver palm of light was like a huge mountain, rampaging. The heavy aura made people suffocate. Oomph! Lin Xian quickly took out the bronze gauntlet and used spirit power to activate it. This time, not only did he activate a large amount of spirit power, but also protected his entire left arm to prevent the backlash. In the next moment, an even more terrifying aura gushed out from Lin Xian's left hand. Wong! The void trembled as the green light from his left hand soared into the sky. It continued to expand as if it was a sun. Shangguan Liuyun's face was pale. In the face of such power, he could only retreat continuously. His eyes were fixed on Lin Xian. Opposite him, the young man turned pale with fright. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This power? Impossible. Facing Lin Xian, he once again had the thought of escaping. But before he could do anything, that boundless power had already surged towards him. The green pillar of light, surrounded by a tornado of lightning, flashed past. Rumble. The silver palm of light was instantly shattered, turning into specks of light that scattered in the air. The green beam of light did not slow down at all after shattering the light palm. It continued to strike the young man's body. Explosions rang out continuously, mixed with shrill cries. Half of the forest was shrouded in a dazzling green light. When everything calmed down, Shangguan Luyun looked over in horror. It was a complete mess in front of him. Wherever the beam of light passed, the grass would be destroyed. The young man's body had long turned into dust and was blown away by the wind. Shangguan Luyun was in a daze as his body kept trembling. What was that? Finally, he asked the question. "I obtained a treasure in the cave. It's a life-saving measure." Lin Xian shrugged his shoulders. He did not hide it because he still had another trump card. Hearing that it was an external force, Shangguan Liuyun's expression eased up. He walked to the right rear and plucked the heart-shaped flower. "I owe you a life. I will return it to you in the future." Shangguan Luyun said gratefully. "Let's go." Lin Xian smiled. He did not want any favors when he helped, but he did not explain anything. The two of them walked side by side into the depths of the blood forest. During this time, most of the disciples had left the periphery and headed into the depths of the blood forest. The top few disciples had successfully broken through the blood forest and were about to enter the blood palace. In the center of the trial of blood and fire, there was a majestic palace that floated in the air. Looking from afar, the blood palace was incomparably huge, like a small mountain. Below it, Murong Qianling, Zheng Jun, Wan Jianqing, Xie Changfeng, Yuan Fei, and the others were sitting cross-legged and resting, preparing to enter. It seems that the blood palace is not open yet. We can't keep waiting like this, Xie Changfeng said with a frown. Why don't we join forces to break the formation and directly kill our way in? Zhang Jun's expression was cold as he looked at the palace in the air with a trace of passion in his eyes. Let's wait. At least wait until all the direct disciples of the three sects have arrived. Murong Qianling's voice was cold. I wonder why the people of Zixia sect haven't arrived yet? Several people were discussing in low voices with different expressions. The Zixia sect disciples they were talking about were fighting with all their might. In the pitch-black cave, countless black bats covered the sky as they rushed over. The Zixia sect disciples fought back with all their might. Among them, Zixia Fairy's long belt danced in the wind, overflowing with multicolored light. All the bats that approached her screamed and fell down. In another direction, the ordinary-looking young girl's body was hazy and covered by a layer of light. She held a beautiful flower in her hand, and with a gentle shake of her hand, thousands of petals floated down, transforming into deadly weapons that continuously reaped the lives of the bat demonic beasts. Soon, the surroundings became quiet. The ground was covered with bat corpses. The group did not stop and immediately set off deeper into the cave. Not long after they left, a few young men with black aura and red eyes walked into the bat cave. When they saw the ground full of corpses, they laughed strangely. It seems that someone has already entered the bat cave. I wonder if they have the same goal as us. Who cares if they have the same goal? We'll just find them and kill them. No one can stop us. One of the black fog people said in a deep voice. Let's quickly refine these bat corpses. They're a great supplement for us. The black fog on their bodies rolled and shrouded the corpses on the ground. They began to refine them. Lin Xian and Shangguan Luyun shuttled through Lin Xian together. As they went deeper, the surrounding environment was constantly changing. Unknowingly, there was a fog around them. It was white, and they couldn't see the scene in the distance. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes. His eyes emitted an orange light. Suddenly, his gaze pierced through the white fog and looked into the distance. How is it? Shangguan Luyun asked. Not good. Although I can see further than now, it's still limited. I can only guarantee that I won't go the wrong way. Lin Xian frowned and said, Then let's go quickly. This blood-red forest is too strange. Shangguan Luyun had a lingering fear. If it wasn't for Lin Xian, he might have been in an even worse state. After an incense's time, the two stopped. Lin Xian's face was not looking good. He used his purple spirit eyes and secretly used his soul force to check the surroundings. What's the situation? Shangguan Luyun could only rely on Lin Xian now. Damn it, this is too embarrassing. We seem to have returned to where we started. Lin Xian's face was slightly red. He was unusually angry. Chapter 119. Lin Xian was a little angry. He had just said that he wouldn't take the wrong path, but he ended up back at the same spot. He used his purple spirit eyes with all his might and looked around carefully. His face was extremely solemn. This is an illusion array. One way to break it is to use a more brilliant method, or directly use a powerful force to shatter everything. Lord Alcohol's voice sounded in his heart. Unless you enter the spiritual sea realm, you won't be able to break it now. Lin Xian understood and chuckled. He transmitted his voice. Isn't there still you, Lord Alcohol? Humph, it's a piece of cake for me. Lord Alcohol snorted and said, Take 8 steps to the right. Lin Xian expressed his understanding and said to Shangguan Luyun, I saw it clearly. Follow me closely. Then, he took 8 steps according to Lord Alcohol's instructions. Shangguan Luyun was puzzled, but he still followed Lin Xian's actions. Then, take 5 steps straight. Lord Alcohol kept guiding. Lin Xian led Shangguan Lu Yun and walked and stopped. Sometimes, they would use some strange footwork. After about 50 steps, the two of them felt the white fog become much thinner. Phew, they were finally out. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Behind him, Shangguan Lu Yun looked at Lin Xian in surprise. To be honest, he was at a loss throughout the entire process. He had no idea what he was doing. If not for Lin Xian, he probably wouldn't have been able to walk out for the rest of his life. Just as the two of them heaved a sigh of relief, they heard fighting ahead. Looking at each other, Lin Xian and Shangguan Lu Yun decided to take a look. They secretly circulated their spirit energy and prepared to deal with any sudden changes. Lin Xian and Shangguan Lu Yun carefully walked over. At the front, the white fog was clearly thicker than the other places. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes to observe and realized that there were many disciples who had fallen under the illusion. They were waving their weapons in the air, looking extremely comical. Some of them were even attacking each other and were about to die. Lin Xian wasn't a saint, and his strength was limited. In this dangerous place, he didn't have the energy to take care of others. Therefore, he didn't want to care about these matters. However, in the illusory array, he saw Human. This girl who had carried out a mission with him was also suffering from the effects of the illusion. When a friend was in trouble, Lin Xian would naturally lend a helping hand. Lin Xian explained the situation to Shangguan Lu Yun. Shangguan Lu Yun did not object. The two of them quickly rushed into the white fog. Stop! As soon as Lin Xian entered, he rushed to Human's side and quickly stopped her. Then, he began to circulate his spiritual energy and combined it with his soul power. He suddenly shouted. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. The disciples who were caught in the illusion trembled and woke up. What happened? The disciples were confused. I'm hurt. Damn it, what's going on? Junior brother Lin Xian, it's you. Human's eyes were also filled with bewilderment. When he saw Lin Xian, he exclaimed, Are you all right? Lin Xian asked. Human shook her head. What happened? You were caught in an illusion. Don't you know? Shangguan Lu Yun was puzzled. Illusion. When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled. When they thought of what happened earlier, they immediately broke out in cold sweat and were terrified. Human looked at Lin Xian gratefully. Fortunately, you arrived. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should we do now? Are we going to be trapped here? The group of disciples panicked. Lin Xian took a deep breath. Follow me. I can bring you out. You. Most people did not believe it. There was even a spirit sea realm warrior among them who had a sneer on his face. Lin Xian ignored the others and said to Human and Shangguan Lu Yun, Follow my footsteps. Don't go wrong. Then, he contacted Lord Alcohol and began to break the illusion array. The other disciples looked at Lin Xian doubtfully. In the end, they gritted their teeth and followed. The whole process was a bit slow. Lin Xian walked and stopped, occasionally confirming something. Suddenly, the surrounding trees swayed. The gray branches constantly twisted and pierced into a disciple's body. A miserable scream rang out. The disciple's flesh instantly caved in, turning into a dried corpse. Lin Xian's pupils also shrank. He did not expect such a change. He immediately used his soul power to envelop the three of them, just in case. Why is it like this? Didn't you say you could bring us out? Someone roared at Lin Xian. Shangguan Lu Yun and Human frowned. Lin Xian sneered and looked at the disciple coldly. Don't be stupid. Maybe this is his trap. He purposely lured us here and killed us. The spirit sea realm warrior sneered in the crowd. Crap, it's the Ling family. Human's expression changed slightly. The person who objected had the highest cultivation and would probably make the situation even more chaotic. As expected, after the Ling family spirit sea realm warrior finished speaking, the remaining people's expressions were uncertain, not knowing who to believe. Lin Xian looked at them and said expressionlessly, Your legs are on your bodies. I never forced you. If you don't want to follow me, you can leave at any time. Humph. You lured us here before saying such words. Sure enough, you don't have good intentions. The Ling family spirit sea realm warrior retorted. Lin Xian's expression darkened. The grudge between him and the Ling family could not be resolved. He was very clear about this. Shaking his head, Lin Xian called out to Human and Shangguan Lu Yun, preparing to leave. Kid, you brought us here, and now you want to leave? I'm afraid it's not that simple. Ling family disciple Ling Kuan laughed nastily. His body flashed as he fiercely attacked. Scatter! Lin Xian shouted. The attack of a spirit sea realm warrior was not something Human and the rest could withstand. Lin Xian moved his body, not wanting to affect his companions. He used Phantom Thunderstep, leaving behind a series of afterimages, making people unable to distinguish between the real and the fake. Petty tricks, destroy them all. The blue spirit power in Ling Kuan's hand turned into a long whip. Like a strange, poisonous snake, it continuously curved forward, shattering all the afterimages in the sky. Reaching the spirit sea realm, spirit power transformation was an important symbol. It represented that the warrior was more proficient in using spirit power. After destroying all of Lin Xian's afterimages with one attack, Ling Kuan laughed proudly. Kid, today is the day you die. Lin Xian was the archenemy of the Ling family. Moreover, he had comprehended sword intent, so his future was limitless. If he could kill Lin Xian, it would definitely be a great achievement. Perhaps the family would nurture him well. Thinking of this, the spirit power in Ling Kuan's body increased by a bit. Human was shocked. Although she knew that Lin Xian was powerful, comparable to a half-step Spirit Sea Realm warrior, he was still a Spirit Sea Realm warrior. His opponent was a genuine first sky of Spirit Sea Realm warrior, whose strength was incomparably powerful. Don't worry, he'll be fine, Shangguan Lu Yun said in a low voice. Then, he thought of that terrifying cyan light pillar. That kind of power still made him feel a lingering fear. Lin Xian also knew that if he used the cyan gauntlet, he could easily kill Ling Kuan. However, that was his life-saving method, and he didn't want to use it casually. Moreover, after entering the 9th level of the Meridian's condensing stage, he hadn't had a good battle yet. What's so great about the Spirit Sea Realm? Today, I'll slaughter the Spirit Sea Realm. Lin Xian's eyes flashed, and the sword intent on his body soared into the sky, sweeping out in all directions. Chapter 120. Lin Xian's body surged with sword intent, and a cyan-colored sword chi slashed towards Ling Kuan. Arrogant. Today, I'll let you know the power of the Sea of Spirit Realm. The whip in Ling Kuan's hand danced like a giant python. Ka, ka. The materialized sword chi struck the spirit whip and directly shattered it. The shocking sword will tore it apart. This scene shocked the surrounding disciples. This was the first time they saw a pulse condensation stage martial artist fighting against a Sea of Spirit Realm martial artist. Explode! Ling Kuan's face kept changing, and he finally shouted, Pong! The broken spirit whip suddenly exploded, and the violent energy enveloped Lin Xian. Severing Origin Protective Sword. The Severing Origin Protective Sword chi had already been cultivated to the 2nd level. The red sword chi covered his body, and the ancient armor he wore also emitted waves of fluctuations, forming a tight defense. While doing this, Lin Xian kept retreating, leaving behind a golden afterimage in the air. Run! The expressions of the surrounding disciples changed drastically. This explosion was already a serious threat to their lives. More than a dozen figures fled one after another. Rumble! The spirit chi exploded, spreading out like waves. Lin Xian had already pushed to the edge of the shockwave, but the aftermath still caused his chi and blood to churn. Whirlwind clouds. Lin Xian waved his long sword, creating 3 hurricanes that blew away the dust. There was no one in front of him. Lin Xian frowned and spread out his soul power to investigate the situation. Suddenly, his face turned to one side, and his body quickly scattered to the side. With a pong, a trench spread out, cutting the ground in half. Die, you ant! Ling Kuan's body appeared beside Lin Xian. His arms formed into a blade-shaped spirit chi, and he suddenly slashed down. Lin Xian was expressionless, and orange light flickered in his eyes. Under the effect of the purple spirit pupil, he found the flaw in Ling Kuan's move. He stabbed out, and the long sword touched the blade chi. As if hitting the weak point of a snake, The dark blue blade qi quickly dimmed, and its power decreased greatly. Whoosh! Lin Xian used the phantom thunder steps, leaving behind 3 golden afterimages beside Ling Kuan, while his real body retreated 15 meters away. How did he know about my weakness? Ling Kuan's eyelids twitched. This was the first time he had used this move in front of others. Moreover, those who had not practiced this move would not be able to discover its flaws. It must be a wild guess. Ling Kuan comforted himself. Explode. While Ling Kuan was guessing, Lin Xian launched an attack from afar. 3 golden phantoms surrounded Ling Kuan in a triangular formation before exploding. Golden arcs of lightning danced and crackled in the air. It was as if a sea of lightning had formed, and the surroundings were scorched black. I'll kill you. A furious voice came out from the sea of lightning. Ling Kuan was incomparably furious. Just a moment ago, he had used an explosion to launch a surprise attack on Lin Xian, but he didn't expect that it would return to him so quickly. Human and Shangguan Luyuan watched this scene in shock. Their eyes were filled with shock. I didn't expect junior brother Lin to be able to fight against a spiritual ocean realm martial artist. This is too abnormal. Human's voice trembled. Shangguan Luyuan was even more shocked. He originally thought that Lin Xian dared to challenge him because of the strange gauntlet. Now, it seemed that with his own strength, he was no longer afraid of a spiritual ocean realm martial artist. The gap between us is getting bigger. Shangguan Luyuan's mouth was bitter. Lin Xian's expression was grave. This Ling Kuan was stronger than the ordinary youth. It seemed that the gap between the spiritual ocean realm was even greater. The 7 layers of the spiritual ocean realm. Each layer is divided into the early, middle, and late stages. The person who died earlier was at the early stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, and this guy in front of us is at the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, Lord Alcohol said indifferently. No wonder. Lin Xian came to a realization. Without the gauntlet, it's really difficult. He didn't want to waste time. After all, the surroundings were too dangerous, and they were still in the illusory array. You can use the illusory array, Lord Alcohol reminded. Use the illusory array? Lin Xian's eyes lit up. His advantage was that he could see through the illusory array. If he used it, the effect would be even better. Lure him to the tree demon at the back, Lord Alcohol said quickly. Lin Xian retreated and ran towards the back. You can't escape. I'm going to tear you apart. Ling Kuan's face was hideous. His body and face were charred black, and he was in an extremely sorry state. Mountain suppressing hand. Ling Kuan jumped up and quickly approached Lin Xian. He waved his palm, and blue spirit qi gushed out, forming a small mountain. The mountain spun and pressed down mercilessly. Break! Lin Xian's sword intent surged. Sword ray shone, and the sharp sword qi split the small blue mountain in half. Suppress. Ling Kuan's eyes were filled with madness. The 2 halves of the huge blue mountain continued to merge and press down. Now, hurry up and attack. You must injure him. Lord Alcohol shouted. Heavenly meteor. Lin Xian's sword was as fast as lightning, and it was extremely sharp. The sword ray flashed, and one of Ling Kuan's arms was cut off. Ling Kuan crazily shouted. The spirit qi on his body turned into a sword ray and flew in all directions, destroying everything in its path. Now, retreat. Lord Alcohol reminded. Lin Xian pushed his speed to the limit and rushed out. With a few flashes, he arrived beside Human and Shangguan Luyuan. Pooh, pooh, pooh. In the distance, a few gray branches stretched out and pierced towards Ling Kuan. The protective barrier shattered, and the gray branches pierced into his body, continuously absorbing his blood essence. Soon, Ling Kuan turned into a dried corpse. Let's go. Lin Xian's scalp went numb. He quickly ran away with Human and Shangguan Luyuan. An hour later, the 3 of them finally walked out of the white fog. We're saved. Human's legs went soft, and she sat on the ground. She gasped for breath, and her chest heaved up and down. Lin Xian and Shangguan Luyuan's breathing were also chaotic. The 3 of them found a safe place and began to rest. In another direction, below the blood-colored palace, more and more people arrived. Apart from the disciples of Zixia sect, Almost all the other spiritual ocean realm martial artists had arrived. Everyone gathered together to rest, preparing to attack the array. Ling family. Ling Feng looked at the surrounding disciples and frowned. Why isn't Ling Kuan here yet? Beside him, Ling Xiao said in a low voice, Ling Kuan's cultivation isn't bad, but his willpower is a bit weak. There are many illusion arrays in the blood-colored forest. I'm afraid he'll be delayed. Ignore him. We'll take action first. Ling Feng said in a deep voice. He was the leader of the Ling family this time. His cultivation had reached the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm, and he could almost compete with the direct disciples of the three major sections. Beside him sat 4 people. They were also in the spiritual ocean realm, and they were all elites of the Ling family. Ling Zhao's gaze swept across the black sky sect without revealing anything. Then, he said in a low voice, that Lin Xian isn't here. It'll be troublesome to find him. Don't worry about him. Ling Feng said in a low voice, our goal is the inheritance inside the blood-colored palace. He's just a little brat in the pulse-condensing realm. It'll be good enough if he can come here alive. Also, not only will we deal with him, even Black Sky Sect's Zhang Jun will kill him. He won't leave here alive. Zhang Jun. The rest of the Ling family disciples took a deep breath. Zhang Jun was a top existence among the direct disciples, and he was even stronger than Ling Feng. If he attacked, Lin Xian definitely wouldn't be able to survive. Just as they were talking in low voices, the disciples of the 3 major sects nearby stood up. Is it starting? Ling Feng's eyes flickered as he looked at the sky. Chapter 121. Above the sky, the blood-colored palace was like a wild beast, occupying the air and covering half of the sky. Taking 2 steps forward, one could feel the desolate aura and enormous pressure coming from above. Everyone, this blood-colored palace has a total of 4 entrances. Why don't we each choose one? This way, we can avoid missing treasures. The one who spoke was Zhang Jun. His voice was clear and penetrating, and everyone nearby could hear it clearly. All right, let's each find our own fortune. In the Lotus sect, Xie Changfeng, Yuan Fei, and the others stood up and ran towards the northern entrance. Accompanying them was another aristocratic family. Brother Zhang, why don't we join hands? Ling Feng smiled. That's exactly what I was thinking. Zhang Jun smiled. Afterwards, the 2 sides met up and walked to the nearest entrance, preparing to attack. The remaining people walked to the southern entrance and started to break the formation. As for the last western entrance, no one touched it. Everyone present knew that it was a death entrance. Very few of the disciples who entered before came back alive, not to mention treasure hunting. At the northern entrance, Xie Changfeng slashed out with his long saber. A huge saber ray cut through the air and slashed on the seal, causing ripples. On the side, Yuan Fei squatted down and twisted his waist to punch out. Like a huge dragon, he broke through the air and fiercely slammed on the seal, causing a rumbling sound. Xie Changfeng glanced at Yuan Fei with some surprise. This youth who was a few years younger than him attacked fiercely, almost catching up to him. Looks like I must get the martial arts inheritance this time, or else my position will be in danger. Xie Changfeng sighed inwardly. He was already 22, and his cultivation was stuck at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier for more than half a year. And Yuan Fei was only 18 years old, and his cultivation was at the late stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. It could be said that his future was limitless. Thinking of this, the long saber in his hand lightly trembled. A dazzling light turned into an arc in the air, wanting to tear the seal apart. In the other direction, Zhang Jun extended his palm. The spiritual energy on his body turned into a huge yellow hand the size of a millstone. With a gust of wind, it slapped on the seal. The seal in front appeared, causing layers of ripples that spread out in all directions as if it would break at any time, but it still didn't break. Mu Rong Qianling waved her long sword like a tornado, and countless sword chi and wind blades slashed towards the seal. Wang Jianxing also stabbed out with his sword, which seemed to have transformed into a sky full of stars, mercilessly smashing into the ground. The Black Heaven sect is indeed a large sect. Their combat power is indeed amazing. Ling Feng sighed. He crossed his arms, and the spiritual energy on his body condensed into a mountain. A terrifying force spread out. Behind the mountain, the shadow of a mountain gradually appeared, causing the void to tremble. "Mountain's suppressing hand," Ling Feng shouted, and the two mountains fell. They were extremely heavy, causing the seal to tremble incessantly. "Good move, Brother Ling." Zhang Jun laughed loudly. The Ling clan's ultimate technique, Mountain's suppressing hand, has become much more powerful in your hands. As the two of them chatted, the attacks in their hands did not fall. Instead, they continued to attack the seal. Just as everyone was busy breaking the seal, many more figures rushed over from afar. "Luckily, I didn't miss it." Human let out a sigh of relief when she saw that the seal was still being broken. "Junior Brother Lin, thank you so much. See you in the blood sky." Human was a disciple of the Lotus sect. Naturally, she couldn't enter with Lin Xian. She waved her hand and ran towards the direction of the Lotus Glory sect. "Let's go too," Lin Xian said to Shangguan Luyun. The two of them ran towards the east entrance. Whoosh, whoosh. The arrival of Lin Xian and Shangguan Luyun attracted everyone's attention. Murong Qinling smiled and nodded, while the Ling clan disciples sneered. Killing intent flashed past Ling Feng and Zhang Jun's eyes. Although it was very hidden, how could it escape from Lin Xian's purple spirit eyes? He sneered in his heart, but his face was expressionless. At this moment, the seal of the north entrance was broken, and the people of the Lotus Glory sect quickly entered. Bang! A crack also appeared on the seal on Lin Xian's side. It was as tall as a person, and it seemed like it would close at any time. "You guys go in first," Ling Feng said very generously. Zhang Jun nodded and quickly led the Black Heaven sect disciples in. Lin Xian's heart sank. He realized that the Ling clan's eyes were all on him, especially Ling Feng, who had a trace of aura locked onto him. Sighing in his heart, Lin Xian felt that the trip to the blood-colored heavenly palace would not be too peaceful. He used the phantom thunder step and his body turned into an afterimage, preparing to enter. Boom! A sharp hidden force surged over, as if it was going to tear him apart. The front was sealed by the attack, and Lin Xian could only retreat. Whoosh! He retreated rapidly and dodged the silent attack. In front, the Black Heaven sect disciples had all entered, and no one noticed the abnormality behind them. Ling Feng looked at Lin Xian and sneered. "You want to enter? Ridiculous." The rest of the Ling clan laughed and looked at Lin Xian with disdain. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. He did not expect the Ling clan to be so bold as to stop him from entering. He took a deep breath and looked at Ling Feng coldly. Sword intent surged from his body like a divine sword that was unsheathed. Feeling this pressure, the Ling clan disciples were slightly shocked, and their expressions were somewhat unnatural. Ling Feng's body was surrounded by light, and his eyes were extremely sharp. "Don't enter the blood-colored heavenly palace. When we come out, it will be the time of your death." Ling Feng waved his hand and let all the Ling clan disciples enter. Then, he stopped the transmission of spirit power, and the whole seal was quickly sealed. Swoosh! The entrance gradually became smaller. Everyone had entered, and only Lin Xian remained outside. Lin Xian did not make a move. Facing so many spiritual Sea Realm disciples, he had no confidence. However, it was impossible for him to just sit there and wait for death. "When I enter, I will kill all of you with my sword." Lin Xian's eyes were filled with coldness. Not long after, the remaining disciples arrived one after another. When they learned that the top disciples had entered, they cried to the sky. "Damn it! I was so close to being able to enter early." Some people were angry. Some people did not believe it and gathered people to attack the seal. However, the highest cultivation among these people was only at the early stage of the first sky of spiritual Sea Realm, and there were very few of them. They could not break the seal at all. Is there no other way to enter? Some disciples were not convinced. There is. I estimate that after 10 days, the seal of the blood-colored heavenly palace will weaken. At that time, we will all be able to enter. 10 days. Everyone inside has already entered. What will be left after 10 days? Not necessarily. This blood-colored trial ground has a few hundred years of history. Even now, there are still countless treasures. So what if we are late by 10 days? Lin Xian stood in the crowd and listened quietly without saying a word. Actually, besides these, there is another way. Someone said in a low voice, that is the western entrance. The western entrance. Many disciples' faces changed, and they shrank back in fear. I will wait for 10 days. Anyway, it is not a big deal. Many people decided to come back after 10 days. There were also some who were meditating, unwilling to leave. Western entrance? What is that place? Lin Xian was puzzled and asked. The information he received did not explain the entrance in detail. Someone looked at him and then explained. The blood-colored heavenly palace is divided into 4 entrances: north, south, east, and west. The other 3 entrances are sealed by powerful seals and can only be entered at certain times. The western entrance is an exception. There is no seal there, so you can enter and exit as you wish. However, no one has ever dared to go there. Why? Lin Xian did not understand. Because no one has ever come out from where they entered. No one has taken that path in the past 100 years. So strange. Lin Xian touched his chin, curious. Chapter 122. Lin Xian was very curious about the mysterious western entrance. Let's go and take a look. We can't wait here for 10 days. He was unwilling to give up and decided to give it a try. Hey, where are you going? Are you really going to the western entrance? A disciple shouted. Lin Xian waved his hand without turning his head and bade farewell to the group. Damn, he's really going there. He's crazy. He's courting death. No one can come out alive. Maybe he's just pretending. When he really goes there, he'll be so scared that his legs will go soft. Many disciples sneered, ready to see Lin Xian make a fool of himself. Lin Xian ignored their thoughts and went to the western entrance to observe it with Lord Alcohol. There was a square entrance in front of them, but there was no sealing force around it. Lin Xian activated his purple spirit eyes and found that it was pitch black inside. He couldn't see through it at all. This place isn't as simple as it looks. There's a formation maintaining it, Lord Alcohol said in a deep voice. This should be a trial. A trial? Lin Xian was puzzled. If that's the case, why did so many people disappear? This is indeed a trial. The consequence of failure is death. Lord Alcohol's voice was grave. It's up to you to decide whether you want to enter or not. Lin Xian didn't hesitate. His eyes were very determined. Let me see how difficult this trial is. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian walked into the western entrance. Whoosh, whoosh. Bloody forest, Bat Cave. In the huge cave, the Bat King's corpse was split in half and fell to the ground. Fresh blood and organs were scattered all over the ground, and a pungent smell filled the air. The Zixia sect disciples searched the cave, not letting go of any place. However, they didn't find anything useful. Fairy Zixia and the rest looked at the beautiful figure in front of them in awe and waited patiently. There's nothing here. Could it be that my deduction was wrong? The beautiful figure whispered. Her limpid eyes scanned the area once again before she sighed softly. How many more forbidden areas like this are there? The mysterious woman asked. There's also a mysterious valley that no one has ever entered before, Fairy Zixia said respectfully. It's said that there's also a mysterious place inside the Blood Heavenly Palace. I can still use the deduction technique one more time? The mysterious woman took out a tortoise shell and continuously infused it with spiritual energy. A moment later, a shadow appeared on the tortoise shell. It was blood red all over and occupied the air. This should be the Blood Heavenly Palace. The mysterious woman put away the tortoise shell and said calmly, Let's go to the Blood Heavenly Palace. The expressions of the Zixia sect's disciples revealed a hint of excitement. They impatiently turned around and prepared to leave. At this moment, a sinister laughter rang out in the tunnel, causing one's scalp to go numb. Hee, you want to leave? I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Several black figures blocked the way, black fog rolling around their bodies. Who are you? Get out of the way. Fairy Zixia shouted. The 5 black figures did not move at all. One of them dispersed the black fog, which turned into countless small black snakes and drilled into the ground. Soon, That person opened his eyes and said in an ice-cold voice, "We didn't find what we were looking for." The black-robed man at the front set his gaze on the Zixia sect's disciples. "Hand over the things you've obtained. Otherwise, you'll die without an intact corpse." "You're also looking for something?" The mysterious woman furrowed her brows. "Could it be that the information has been leaked?" "It seems you already know." The black-robed leader's voice was hoarse. "Hand over the things, and I'll leave you with an intact corpse." After he finished speaking, the black fog on his body rolled and condensed into a ferocious demonic beast above his head. Netherworld death chi? The mysterious woman was slightly stunned. Soon after, she sneered, "I didn't expect that you'd actually come back from the ashes. I just don't know how many of your people are still alive." The mysterious woman's words startled the 5 black-robed men. As for the Zixia sect's disciples, they were bewildered. "Kill them all and bring them back." The black-robed leader's voice was cruel. Suddenly, black fog filled the air and covered the whole cave. Flickering light passing shadow. The mysterious woman's figure danced like a graceful swan. A translucent light rushed out and dispersed the black fog. "She's not from the state of Great Xia. Form a formation to deal with her." The black-robed leader was greatly alarmed and hastily shouted. 5 streams of black fog flew out from the black-robed men's bodies. They intertwined in the air and formed a 5-pointed formation that surrounded the group. 5th Netherworld Formation. Open. The black fog surged and transformed into a huge beast claw. Endless baleful aura filled the air and filled the whole space. The mysterious woman furrowed her brows and said hatefully, "If it weren't for the suppression of cultivation in this damned space, you wouldn't have had the chance to be so presumptuous." Soon after, her body blossomed with rays of multicolored light that welcomed the black-scaled claw. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of footsteps echoed in the surroundings, creating overlapping sounds. Lin Xian's body blossomed with rays of light that could only illuminate the path under his feet. Wherever he passed, the darkness receded like a tide and surrounded him violently. Lin Xian didn't know how long he had been walking. It seemed as if there was no end in sight. There was no sound and no figure. There was only the sound of his heartbeat and the echoing sound of his footsteps. It continued until eternity. An illusory formation? He stopped in his tracks. The orange light in his eyes flickered like 2 divine lights that streaked across the darkness. Not far away, a light lit up. It looked like a door, but it was blurry. Lin Xian lifted his feet and walked toward the door. However, after a while, he realized that the door had deviated from its direction and appeared on his left side again. He adjusted his direction, but the door remained on his side. It was as if he had never walked in the right direction. Lin Xian smiled. He knew that he had fallen into an illusory formation. But so what? The path I walk, even if there is darkness ahead, I will use the sword in my hand to cut out a path of light. The sword intense seed in his body trembled. The phantom of a huge golden sword appeared behind him, towering between heaven and earth. The blurry door of light disappeared. Then, a sword ray shot out from Lin Xian's body and cut through the void. Like a broken mirror, the boundless darkness turned into bits and pieces and disappeared in the air. The surrounding scenery changed drastically. Under a pink curtain, there was a strong floral fragrance in the air. There was also a faint body fragrance. A graceful figure was faintly discernible, a peerless face and a devilish figure. This was a cave of beauties. If it were anyone else, they would have been spurting blood. However, Lin Xian was expressionless. The orange light in his eyes flickered with a hint of red. His gaze was firm and his expression was calm. He walked straight past. Behind him, the pink turned into a skeleton and disappeared. "You're here. You're finally here." The surrounding scenery changed again. A person appeared in front of him. The figure in front of him was blurry, as if it was covered by fog. Lin Xian walked forward and finally saw the other person's appearance. Young, delicate, black hair fluttering in the wind. His eyes were full of confidence. It was as if another him was standing there. A person who looked exactly like him was standing in front of him. Chapter 123. Lin Xian looked at his other self in front of him and smirked. What is it this time? Was it still an illusion? No, I am you. I really exist. The figure said slowly. Is that so? Lin Xian's aura suddenly changed. Sword and tint surrounded him, making him look like a sword god. A powerful sword aura cut through the ground and rushed towards the figure. The 9 spiritual veins in his body resonated. Pure spiritual energy was attached to the sword, forming a 7-meter-long sword aura that slashed towards the figure. Boom! On the other side, a shocking aura also rushed out of the figure, as if it was going to cut through the void. Sword and tint. Lin Xian was shocked. He didn't expect the other party to know this as well. So strong. This sword and tint seems to be even stronger than mine. Lin Xian whispered. Could it be true sword and tint? His sword and tint was still at the half-step sword and tint stage, but the other party had most likely passed this stage and entered the true sword and tint stage. The figure smiled and raised his right hand. Then, he suddenly slashed down. A 7-meter-long sword aura flew out, but the aura on it was even sharper. Rumble, the 2 sword auras collided. Like a volcanic eruption, the airwaves rolled and the invisible energy hit Lin Xian. Phantom thunder step? Lin Xian kept jumping. At the same time, a red protective sword aura condensed on his body to offset the aftershock of the sword aura. Whoosh! He floated to the ground. Orange light flickered in his eyes as he looked forward. There, the figure stood quietly. The sword and tint on him was even stronger. Kill! Lin Xian didn't hesitate and rushed over again with his sword. He had the bronze gauntlets and talismans. It wouldn't be difficult to kill this figure. But he didn't. He faintly felt that he had to use his own strength to kill this figure. Otherwise, even if he killed him, he might not be able to walk out. Lin Xian turned into a golden light and arrived in front of the figure in an instant. The red flame sword in his hand pierced out like thunder. He used the thunder sword art, but the other party also used it. Not only were the moves the same, but the power was also stronger than Lin Xian's. 3 gale thrusts. Lin Xian's body moved along with his sword, turning into a green rainbow that flew out like a gust of wind. That figure also flew out, turning into a hurricane. Ding ding ding. The long swords clashed, creating sparks in the air. Every time, the tip of the sword clashed against the tip of the sword. It was extremely dangerous. After 3 clashes, Lin Xian decisively retreated. He realized that the figure in front of him was too strange. Not only did he use the same moves as him, but his sword and tint was also superior to his. What should I do? He kept thinking. This time, the figure opposite him took the initiative to attack. Lin Xian met the attack head-on. Their figures intertwined, and in the blink of an eye, over 100 moves had been exchanged. Something's not right. Lin Xian dodged his opponent's sword chi, but his body suddenly trembled. If his sword and tint was stronger than mine, I would have died long ago. However, the current situation is that neither of us can do anything to the other. Lin Xian's eyes gradually lit up. I've been under his illusion from the start. Inside his body, Lord Alcohol was paying close attention to the battle. When he saw Lin Xian come to a realization, a smile appeared on his face. Defeat him, and you will be able to condense true sword and tint, Lord Alcohol muttered to himself. Lin Xian didn't hear Lord Alcohol's words, but his thoughts were the same as Lord Alcohol's. As long as I can condense true sword and tint, I will be able to defeat him. Lin Xian saw hope. But how can I condense true sword and tint? He had been stuck at the half-step sword and tint stage for too long, unable to break through for a long time. The other party has the intent of sword and tint, but he doesn't have the might of sword and tint. Perhaps I can gain insights from him. With this thought in mind, Lin Xian attacked again. This time, other than exchanging blows with the figure, Lin Xian also used his purple spirit eyes and soul power to constantly gain insights into the sword and tint. Analyzing, verifying, and absorbing, Lin Xian rapidly improved. 2 hours later, the sword and tint seed in Lin Xian's body glowed brightly as it emitted a shocking aura. A sword of lightning was faintly discernible as it stirred up the winds and clouds. Lin Xian felt a powerful force, as though a single glance could destroy everything. Is this sword and tint? He raised his sword with one hand and pointed it diagonally at the sky. With a swing of his sword, the air in front of him was sucked dry. The figure seemed to be frozen in place, unable to move. The golden sword beam was extremely sharp, as though it had sliced through the void. A huge sword mark streaked across the ground, leaving a deep ravine. The figure that looked like Lin Xian had blood seeping out from his glabella as he collapsed weakly. You shouldn't have killed me, the figure said weakly. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly as two sword beams shot out from his eyes, piercing through the figure. Bam! The voice was completely disappointed as the light on its body vanished, revealing its true form. A wooden figurine fell to the ground with its head split in half. Golden electric arcs danced around the cracks. This battle actually allowed me to gain insights into true sword intent. As expected of the trial, Lin Xian was extremely delighted. His combat strength had increased greatly. Even if he were to face Ling Kuan, he would be able to kill him directly. Let's go. The trial isn't over yet, Lord Alcohol reminded. Lin Xian nodded and walked towards the door of light. Swoosh. With a flash of white light, the scenery changed again. This was a bluestone path with a vermilion door in front of it. On both sides of the door were various scenery. Leave this stage to me, Lord Alcohol said. Do as I say. Following that, Lin Xian began advancing under Lord Alcohol's guidance. This process was extremely strange to outsiders, but only Lin Xian knew how dangerous it was. Finally, Lin Xian passed through the bluestone path without any mishap and walked through the vermilion door. Inside was a hall supported by 4 pillars. In front of it was a stone statue that stood proudly. Although it didn't move, it had an aura that looked down on the world. If it were an ordinary person, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand this aura. Thankfully, Lin Xian had gained insights into sword intent, so he wasn't affected. There was a stone table under the stone statue with 2 items on it. One was a stone token, and the other was a palm-sized key. That stone token should be a symbol of identity. That key might be an important clue to opening an important place. Put it away for now, Lord Alcohol said. When Lin Xian heard that, he quickly put the 2 items into his storage ring. Although I don't know Senior's name, this trial has indeed benefited me greatly, Lin Xian said seriously, and then he bowed deeply. Thank you, Senior. Rumble. As though sensing Lin Xian's respect, the towering stone statue's aura surged as though it had come to life. Fated One. A deep voice rang out, reverberating in the hall. The surrounding air seemed to have frozen. Lin Xian felt as though he was high up in the sky, fluttering with the wind. In his eyes, there was a stalwart figure standing in the void. When the sword was unsheathed, the wind rose. Lin Xian didn't understand the concept contained within, but the apocalyptic scene shook his soul. Wind Thearka's sword. An ethereal voice resounded in his ears. Chapter 124. The Wind Emperor's Sword. An ancient voice echoed in Lin Xian's mind. In the end, all the light and shadows transformed into a sword beam that entered Lin Xian's glabella. After a long time, Lin Xian opened his eyes. That sword, if I'm not wrong, it should be a kind of inheritance, Lord Alcohol said indifferently. Lin Xian nodded. There was indeed some information in his mind, but it wasn't complete. He didn't leave immediately. Instead, he silently digested the information in his mind in the hall. Although it was only a single sword strike, it contained too many things. It was ever-changing and could derive many things. Lin Xian only memorized the most basic parts. He would slowly study the rest when he had time. After tidying up, Lin Xian quickly left. At that moment, a group of female disciples rushed over from outside the blood-colored sky. It's the people from the Zixia sect, someone exclaimed. Why are they only here now? They're all injured. What happened? Who dares to attack them? The surrounding disciples whispered. The people from the Zixia sect ignored the crowd and ran straight for the entrance. The leader was a mysterious woman. Without hesitation, she raised her jade-like hand and pressed it on the seal. Bang! With a loud bang and a dazzling light, a huge hole was blasted open in the seal. If the personal disciples of the 3 sects were here, they would definitely go crazy. They had attacked the seal for an entire incense stick's worth of time, but the mysterious woman had completely blasted it open with a single strike. With a flash, the mysterious woman disappeared in front of the seal. The other disciples of the Zixia sect also entered one after another. It actually opened. The surrounding disciples stared blankly ahead as if they were dreaming. "Charge!" someone shouted, and the group of disciples pounced like locusts. With a flash of white light, Lin Xian appeared on the street. There were tall buildings all around, and every once in a while, there would be a fork in the road. It was like a maze. The sound of fighting came from ahead, accompanied by intense spiritual energy fluctuations. Lin Xian keenly sensed that this situation wasn't just happening in one place. "Looks like the treasure hunt has only just begun," Lin Xian muttered. "Stop sighing. Let's go. I found a good place." Lord Alcohol urged. "Turn right at the 3rd Street. It's the second door inside, quick." Lin Xian tapped the soles of his feet lightly. Like a wisp of green smoke, he quickly floated past. Now that he had comprehended a trace of the Wind Emperor's sword, he had a new understanding of the use of wind. It could be said that he now possessed the wind and lightning attributes. As long as he could perfectly fuse the two attributes, his strength would skyrocket. During this time, many people looked in Lin Xian's direction. However, when they saw the thick stone gate and the 5-colored seal, they all sighed and quickly left. There were many places like this in the blood-colored Heavenly Palace. Ordinary people couldn't open them. As for Zheng Jun, Xie Changfeng, and the others who had the ability to open this kind of seal, they had already entered deeper. However, Lin Xian was different. He had Lord Alcohol, so this kind of seal wasn't difficult for him. Just as he approached the stone gate, Lin Xian sensed a thick, medicinal fragrance. His soul power could even capture the energy contained within. How fragrant! Lin Xian's eyes lit up. "Good wine." Lord Alcohol chuckled. "This seal has been sealed for so long that even the fragrance has leaked out. But that's good. It won't be difficult to crack it." Lin Xian followed Lord Alcohol's instructions. He extended his soul power and carefully cracked the seal. Ka, ka. With 2 soft sounds, the stone gate slowly opened, causing the ground to tremble. Whoosh! With a flash, Lin Xian entered. He had already used his soul power to probe the place. There was no danger inside. The stone room wasn't very big, and there weren't any weapons or cultivation techniques inside. Instead, there were rows of wine jars. The largest one was the size of a water tank, while the smaller ones were bronze wine flasks. They were scattered on the table. "What wine is this? It smells so good." Lin Xian took a deep breath. The 9 spirit meridians in his body trembled and began to circulate rapidly. "Start with the small ones." Lord Alcohol was clearly an expert. With a wave of his hand, Lin Xian put away the 3 bronze wine flasks on the long table. Then, he began to collect the other wine jars. The stone gate is open," someone exclaimed outside. Immediately, countless figures rushed over. "Damn! Spiritual wine." Several figures rushed in and greedily inhaled the fragrance of the wine. The spiritual energy contained within the wine loosened his bottleneck. Attack! The warriors' eyes were filled with madness as they pounced on the wine jars. Lin Xian didn't pay any attention to them. He had already cleaned out the best wine in the room. The rest of the wine was nothing to him. Lin Xian's gaze landed on a dark red wine cabinet. There was a wine cup inside. Lin Xian tried to take it, but found that there was a seal blocking it. Why is there only this kind of wine? A few Sea of Soul Realm warriors found that some places were empty. "Kid, did you take it? If you know what's good for you, hand it over quickly." 3 Sea of Soul Realm warriors looked at Lin Xian with unkind eyes. "A pulse condensation realm trash. Take him down and take his storage ring." One of the Sea of Soul Realm warriors sneered. "Okay." The other 2 agreed. Their auras surged out like 3 mountains, filling the entire space. "Not good, retreat." Some of the Pulse Condensation Realm warriors' faces changed as they retreated. Although the spiritual wine was good, one needed to be alive to enjoy it. These people retreated from the stone room, but they didn't go far. Instead, they looked around the door. "Sigh, that kid inside is dead for sure." Too greedy. He dares to act like this in front of Sea of Soul Realm warriors. He deserves to die. The 3 Sea of Soul Realm warriors were proud. Kid, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the spiritual wine, or die. Lin Xian turned around and glanced at the 3 indifferently. I've killed quite a few Sea of Soul Realm warriors. If you don't want to die, scram. The 3 were slightly stunned, then laughed arrogantly. Haha, what did he say? He's killed Sea of Soul Realm warriors? You dare to tell us to scram? Today, no one can save you. Fleeting Blade, Jade Hand, Light Fist. The 3 attacked fiercely, shaking the entire stone room. Lin Xian stretched out his palm and drew a circle in front of him. A clear blue stream rotated, and a gale was generated. However, this gale was very gentle, like a pair of invisible hands, guiding the 3's moves. Pong, pong, pong. The 3 Sea of Soul Realm warriors' attacks were guided by Lin Xian and collided with the seal on the wine cabinet. The ground trembled, and cracks appeared on the surrounding walls. Some of the wine jar's surfaces were suffused with white light. There was clearly some kind of power protecting this blood-colored, heavenly palace. Otherwise, these attacks would have destroyed the entire stone room. Gotcha! The seal on the wine cabinet shattered, and the thing inside was revealed. A thick fragrance wafted out of the wine. The fragrance was mesmerizing. Lin Xian moved his arm and quickly took out the wine cup. You dare. Put it down. You're courting death. The 3 Sea of Soul Realm warriors were furious. They had already forgotten that Lin Xian had dissolved their attacks with one move. Their minds were filled with the spiritual wine. Chapter 125. The 3 Sea of Soul Realm martial artists were like 3 angry beasts. Their eyes were bloodshot as they pounced toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian laughed heartily and drank all the spirit wine in his cup. Die! The 3 carried a fierce aura and attacked Lin Xian fiercely. Lin Xian sneered and slashed out with his sword. A powerful sword intent raged like a heavenly sword, stabbing at the 3's weak points. Puff, puff, puff. The sword light flashed and the 3 retreated in horror. Their attacks were disintegrated in an instant, and the one who did this was only a 9th rank condensing meridian martial artist. Sword intent. This is sword intent. The 3 sucked in a breath of cold air. Misunderstanding. This is an abnormal misunderstanding. We will leave now. Then, the 3 turned into afterimages and quickly fled, leaving the group of martial artists at the door in a daze. Lin Xian didn't kill them. After all, there was no great enmity between them. Moreover, after leaving, he would have to face their elders. If he killed them, it would be troublesome. Of course, if they were from the Ling family, then it would be a different story. Lin Xian wouldn't let his enemies go. He used his soul power to search again, but didn't find anything else. He didn't touch the 2 jars of spirit wine in the corner because he didn't need it. Moreover, he already had enough. There was nothing wrong with leaving some for the remaining people. Retracting his gaze, Lin Xian walked out of the door. Hua! The people blocking the door scattered and looked at him with awe, afraid that he would kill them all if he was unhappy. Lin Xian found that there were also Black Sky sect disciples in the crowd. He nodded and said slowly, "The spirit wine inside is enough for you to distribute. Take it one by one. Don't fight and don't fight." The group nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Who would dare to disobey? The 3 Sea of Soul Realm martial artists had escaped together, so no one dared to act wildly. Lin Xian did this mainly because he was afraid that the Black Sky sect disciples would be at a disadvantage. After all, there were many disciples of other forces here. His body swayed and turned into a breeze, floating away. The remaining disciples began to walk in silently and distribute the spirit wine, according to the number of people. This was probably the only place in the blood-colored heavenly palace where such a harmonious scene could be found. Lin Xian's figure quickly moved. He found a remote corner and sat down. The spirit wine in his body had already started to take effect. Actually, the best thing to do would be to wait until it was safe before drinking the spirit wine. However, there were too many Sea of Souls realm warriors in this bloody palace. Moreover, he could meet Ling Feng or Zhang Jun at any time. Both of them were martial artists at the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm. In this place where opportunities were everywhere, breaking through to the next level was not difficult. He had to quickly increase his strength so that he could obtain more resources. The spirit wine in his body turned into a warm current and began to rush through his meridians. Lin Xian took out the crimson flame greatsword, activated tenfold gravity, and stabbed it in front of him. As for himself, he closed his eyes and began to activate the longevity secret art. From the meridian's condensing stage to the spirit sea stage, one had to gather the power of the 9 spirit meridians in the dantian to form the spirit sea. Lin Xian thought about it thoroughly before he began to act. Without deliberately suppressing it, the spirit power in Lin Xian's body surged without stopping. Under the effect of the spirit wine, the circulation of his spirit power was several times faster than usual. The 9 spirit meridians were like a vast river, constantly circulating. According to the chant of the longevity secret art, Lin Xian began to gather the spirit sea in his dantian. His abnormal actions finally attracted the attention of others. Many disciples looked over, but most of them only gave him a quick glance and ignored him. After all, the most important thing now was to find the treasure. Who would care about other people's business? However, there were exceptions among these people, and they were the disciples of the Ling family. 2 Sea of Souls realm disciples of the Ling family looked at Lin Xian's figure and revealed a puzzled expression. Wasn't he blocked outside? How did he come in? There are more and more martial artists here. I'm afraid something happened outside that we don't know about. One of the Ling family disciples said, but that's not important. Who cares how he came in? We just need to kill him. The 2 laughed nastily. With a stomp of their feet, they turned into rays of light and flew over. It looks like he's about to enter the Sea of Souls realm. How long has it been? He went from the 8th level of the Meridian's realm to the Sea of Souls realm. He must have had a fortuitous encounter. After we kill him, we'll take his storage ring. Let him die from chi deviation. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The 2 arrived in a flash and stretched out their palms arrogantly. Wong. In front of them, the red flame sword trembled. 10 times the pressure appeared and crashed down. The 2 Ling family disciples' bodies suddenly fell. Their eyes revealed a horrified expression as they retreated in panic. What's going on? After retreating 3 zhang away, the 2 were still in shock. That sword is strange. It seems to be able to create a special gravity. The 2 were both Sea of Souls realm experts and quickly understood. Attack from afar. Mountain suppressing hand. Pushing out a palm, the spirit power in his body gushed out and gathered in front of him into an ancient small mountain that quickly flew over. Rumble. Wherever it passed, the ground caved in by 3 layers. One could imagine the terrifying power contained within. However, 10 times the gravity was no joke. Soon, the small mountain of spirit power was worn down. Then, the sword lightly trembled and absorbed the spirit power. I don't believe it. Again. The 2 didn't want to miss this good opportunity and attacked with their mountain-suppressing hand. 2 mountains of spirit power flew out and crashed into Lin Xian. Although Lin Xian was breaking through to the Sea of Souls realm, he still left some of his divine sense to pay attention to the outside world. Seeing the 2 mountains of spirit power fly over, he frowned. Don't worry about breaking through. I'm here. Lord Alcohol said with a smile. Although I can't directly attack, I can still control a sword. With Lord Alcohol around, Lin Xian was completely at ease. He began to break through to the spiritual sea with all his might. Outside, the 2 mountains quickly rushed over and charged into the 10 times gravity zone. However, this time, the dark red rune on the red flame sword blossomed with light. The 2 spirit energy mountains entered the gravitational field and spun in a strange circle. Then, they flew back without moving. This scene made the 2's faces change again. They cursed and spread out to the sides. Pong, pong. The 2 mountains of spirit power crashed into the wall behind them and caused a tremor. Fortunately, the interior of the blood-colored palace was extremely sturdy. Only some stones fell. The 2 gritted their teeth. They couldn't break through no matter what they did. They could only watch as Lin Xian broke through bit by bit. No, we can't let him off so easily. I'll go find Ling Yun. He should be nearby. One of them quickly left. The remaining one stared at Lin Xian with killing intent flashing in his eyes. When Big Brother Lin Xian comes, you're dead meat. He was very confident because Ling Yun was a martial artist at the late stage of the first stage of the spiritual sea realm. He was very powerful, far more powerful than the two of them. Just as the Ling family disciple called for reinforcements, Lin Xian's body underwent a drastic change. In his dantian, there was a ball of green liquid that kept spinning like a whirlpool. Lin Xian broke through to the spiritual sea realm very smoothly and in a very short time. If he told others, no one would believe him. However, this was all thanks to his cultivation technique, the art of longevity. Apart from the domineering name, this cultivation technique once again displayed its power. In fact, Lin Xian didn't know that his spiritual sea was bigger than others. It didn't look like he had just entered the spiritual sea realm. After learning that the Ling family disciple called for reinforcements, he sneered. If he could make use of this situation to defeat a powerful opponent, that would be the best. Thinking of this, he didn't get up. Instead, he used his spirit power to squeeze out some sweat, pretending that it was very difficult. Chapter 126. Seeing Lin Xian's pained expression, the Ling family disciple sneered. Do you really think the spirit sea realm is that easy to break through? Back then, he had spent a lot of effort to break through to the spirit sea realm. Now that he thought about it, he was still a little scared. Seeing Lin Xian's appearance, he had a gloating expression on his face. Not long after, the Ling family disciple who had left returned with a stern-looking young man and a youth. Big Brother Yun. The Ling family disciple who was guarding Lin Xian shouted happily. The young man was Ling Yun, and the youth beside him was Ling Zhe. Ling Yun looked at Lin Xian with a gloomy expression. You two are really embarrassing. You can't even take care of someone who can't move. The two trembled in fear and hurriedly explained. The black sword in front of that kid is strange. It can produce a strong gravitational force. Big Brother Yun, you have to be careful. Go back and practice hard. Don't embarrass the Ling family. Ling Yun said in a low voice. You two found him, which is a great contribution. I'll report this to the family head when I get back. Thank you, Big Brother Yun. The two were overjoyed. Ling Yun smiled faintly. He first shocked the two of them so that they didn't dare to claim credit. Then, he prepared to take care of Lin Xian. Getting rid of a genius who had comprehended sword intent was definitely a big deal. He would probably be rewarded handsomely. Ling Yun used his fingers like a knife and sent out a resplendent blade aura. It fell into the gravitational field and gradually disappeared. There is indeed something strange. The gravity is about 10 times stronger than normal. Ling Yun was much stronger than the other two and had more experience. With Big Brother Yun's strength, forcefully breaking through is no problem. The two complemented. Ling Zhe was also looking forward to it. He wanted to see Lin Xian die with his own eyes. Ling Yun sneered. Why go through so much trouble to kill a kid? Today, I'll show you my newly comprehended martial technique. Letting a genius die from chi deviation is far more satisfying than killing him myself. Ling Zhe looked at Lin Xian as if he was looking at a dead man. Ling Yun slowly walked in front of Black Sword, his cold gaze fixed on Lin Xian. Brat, since you dared to offend the Ling family, you shall atone for your sins with your death. Lin Xian sneered in his heart. He didn't act rashly. He wanted to wait for Ling Yun to let his guard down completely. Roar. Ling Yun channeled his spiritual energy, leaned forward, and roared. His deep voice, combined with his spiritual energy, formed a powerful sound wave attack that rushed towards Lin Xian. Crack, crack. The nearby walls, the ground, and all the places that were enveloped by the sound waves had scars that looked like they had been slashed by a sword. It was extremely terrifying. Some of the warriors who were passing by were even more terrified. The weaker ones were coughing out blood incessantly. Even the 2 Sea of Souls realm warriors from the Ling family were pale and dizzy. Sound wave attacks are truly sinister. Lin Xian cursed in his heart. This type of attack was impossible to defend against. It could penetrate the body and directly injure the internal organs. However, Lin Xian was not afraid. His soul force was more powerful than sound waves, and his defense was more effective. However, he couldn't make it too obvious. He had to lure Ling Yun closer so that he could attack. He secretly communicated with Lord Alcohol and got him to control the red flame broadsword to make it look like he was defending. At the same time, he used his soul force to neutralize the sound wave attack, but he pretended to be injured. To outsiders, Lin Xian's face was pale, and he was on the verge of collapse. The dark red broadsword in front of him trembled slightly, blocking most of the sound wave attack. You can actually block it? Ling Yun was astonished, and his expression turned ugly. He used his sound wave technique again, and it was extremely terrifying. However, Lin Xian's face only turned paler, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Other than that, there was no other change. Big Brother Yun, you improved so quickly. You must have had a fortuitous encounter. Who knows, you might have some treasure on you. The two Ling family disciples behind him said. Ling Yun's expression relaxed. Treasure? That's even better. Fine, let me deal with you personally. It's your honor. Ling Yun sneered, and a layer of spirit armor appeared on the surface of his body. Then, his body flashed, and he charged straight at Lin Xian. Lin Xian used his soul force to sense everything. He decided to use his strongest sword in tint attack and was even prepared to use his bronze gauntlets. This time, he had to kill Ling Yun. Whoosh! Ling Yun's body flashed, and he quickly arrived beside Lin Xian. The spirit armor on his body was slightly deformed due to the effects of tenfold gravity. He looked down from above and placed one hand on Lin Xian's head with a trace of contempt in his eyes. Die, ant. However, before he could use any strength, the situation changed drastically. Lin Xian, who seemed to be heavily injured like an ant, suddenly opened his eyes. Two golden arcs of lightning were as sharp as divine swords. Sword and tint surged from his body, and his aura was shocking. Nearly 30 meters of sword chi appeared in his hand, and he slashed with all his might. The complete form of sword and tint, coupled with the cultivation of the spiritual sea realm, made this strike extremely fast and breathtaking. Ling Yun's face was still filled with disdain, but his body suddenly split into two. Even in death, he couldn't believe that he would die at the hands of Lin Xian. This scene was too sudden. Ling Yun's carelessness and arrogance, coupled with Lin Xian's advancement, caused all of this to happen in an instant. The faces of the Ling family disciples in the distance were distorted. They couldn't accept what was happening in front of them. Ling Zhe bit his lips tightly, his body trembling non-stop. Impossible, Big Brother Yun can't die. Ling Zhe and the rest kept pinching themselves to wake up from their dreams. However, this was reality, a bloody reality. Lin Xian's body flashed, and he appeared in front of the three. With a wave of his arm, two rays of sword chi flew out, carrying a sharp sword intent, and killed the two spiritual sea realm martial artists. After entering the spiritual sea realm, not only could one transform their spirit chi, but they could also release sword chi. Lin Xian's lips curled up slightly as he looked at Ling Zhe. No, don't kill me. Ling Zhe was so scared that he lost control of his bowels. His legs went soft, and he knelt on the ground. If he could turn back time, he definitely wouldn't have provoked Lin Xian. Ling Zhe was filled with regret. He was the one who brought disaster to the family. However, there were no ifs in this world. Lin Xian wouldn't let this person who tried to kill him multiple times go. The sword chi flashed, and a bloody hole appeared between Ling Zhe's eyebrows. He died with endless regret. Lin Xian took the storage rings of the three people and left quickly. Fortunately, he had used the lion's roar technique earlier, scaring away everyone nearby. Therefore, no one saw Lin Xian kill anyone. It took a long time for someone to come over. However, when they saw the corpses on the ground, they all ran away quickly. After Lin Xian left the scene, he slowed down. He took the storage rings of the three people in his hands and began to check the contents. Ling Zhe and the other two people were very ordinary. Other than some spiritual stones and pills, there was nothing else. However, he was very satisfied with the contents of the storage rings. There were close to 100 mid-grade spiritual stones, a box of low-grade spiritual stones, and two martial techniques. One was the Ling family's secret technique, the mountain-suppressing hand. The other was the sound wave technique. Lin Xian looked at the sound wave technique first. To be honest, he was very interested in this kind of attack. If it wasn't for his strong soul power, he would have died under the sound wave technique. Mad Lion Roar. As Lin Xian traveled slowly, he began to read the Mad Lion Roar sound wave martial technique. Chapter 127. Lion Roar was a high-grade mystic-ranked martial technique. It used vibrations to produce sound waves that combined with spirit energy attacks to kill without leaving a trace. The more Lin Xian read, the more delighted he became. He had a vague idea that if the sound waves were combined with spirit energy, the lethality would be even greater. Furthermore, it would be harder for the opponent to defend against it. After all, spirit energy attacks were too rare, and warriors who cultivated spirit energy were even rarer. At least, Lin Xian had yet to see anyone use a spirit energy attack. He could be said to have a photographic memory. After quickly reading through it, he imprinted all the content in his mind. Roar. Lin Xian circulated his spirit energy as the air vibrated and rippled like water. Terrifying cracks appeared on the wall in front of him. Seeing the effect, he smiled in satisfaction before turning his gaze to the mountain-suppressing hand. This was the Ling family's ultimate technique, a low-grade spirit-ranked martial technique. Its power was unimaginable. However, the Ling family's disciples' cultivation levels were too low, so they were unable to use its full power. According to what was written, at the highest level, one could condense 5 gigantic mountains. The power was no different from a real mountain peak, or even stronger. Lin Xian studied it seriously and realized that he could use the first level, which was to condense a huge mountain. However, he didn't dare use it in the blood-colored heavenly palace. If he was discovered, the Ling family's elders would definitely not let him off. No matter how powerful he was, he didn't believe that he could fight against an elder-ranked warrior. Therefore, it was better to be cautious. Lin Xian searched the entire way. Under Lord Alcohol's guidance, he arrived in front of a herb garden. There were clearly more warriors here than in other places, but most of them were in the periphery. Few could go deep. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes to look and realized that the entire herb garden was protected by an array formation. However, due to the passage of time, the defensive array formation had become dilapidated. There were many loopholes in it. Even so, it wasn't a place where ordinary warriors could casually enter. However, there were many spirit herbs in the herb garden. It was too attractive to warriors. Even if their lives were in danger, these people still wanted to take the risk. Saffron flower. Someone exclaimed not far away. Everyone looked over and saw a disciple with a flushed face. He was extremely excited. In front of him, there was a blue flower. It was very beautiful, like a sapphire. So it's this kind of spirit medicine. It's almost extinct in the cloud state. It can only be found in the depths of the Taihang Mountains. Lin Xian was also slightly moved. An orange light flashed in his eyes, and then he frowned. Under the effect of his spirit eyes, he could see things that ordinary people could not see. There were some deadly traps around that navy blue flower, which were powerful enough to kill a Sea of Souls realm warrior. Don't pick it. It's a trap, Lin Xian warned in a low voice. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Some people were bewildered, but most of them were sneering. Who do you think you are? You found a trap just by looking at it? Someone sneered. What a joke. He must have said it on purpose because he was jealous. The disciple in the herb garden also sneered. Don't bother. I'm going to pluck this flower. Lin Xian sighed inwardly and stopped paying attention. As for that disciple, he slowly stretched out his hand in front of everyone's envy. His hand was getting closer and closer. When it was 3 feet away from the navy blue flower, ripples appeared in the air. A bolt of blue lightning appeared out of nowhere and struck the disciple directly. The powerful electric current killed him instantly. Puff! The charred corpse fell to the ground, with wisps of black smoke still rising from it. Hiss! Everyone gasped, and their backs were drenched in cold sweat. It was too terrifying. Nothing happened a moment ago, and the next moment, he died in a strange place. Such a strange method was terrifying. Other than fear of the herb garden, Everyone was more impressed by Lin Xian. Not only could he detect danger, but he could also warn them out of kindness. This kind of warrior was really rare. Many disciples blushed. They were just mocking Lin Xian not long ago. Who knew that they were the ignorant ones? Many disciples began to look for Lin Xian, but they found that he seemed to have disappeared. He's there. Finally, someone found Lin Xian's figure, but even more people were disappointed. They originally wanted Lin Xian to give them some pointers, but he had already gone deep into the herb garden. It was too late to say anything now. Many people secretly gritted their teeth and regretted it. Lin Xian stood in the herb garden and walked carefully. He would occasionally reach out and pluck some spiritual herbs. Every time he reached out, he would leave behind some roots or seeds so that these spiritual herbs could continue to grow. In the blink of an eye, he had already plucked 5 spiritual herbs. Gradually, Lin Xian left the herb garden and walked inside. There were some houses and some figures. Among them, Lin Xian found Wang Jianxing, Yuan Fei, and other disciples. However, the personal disciples were not here. Lin Xian's arrival only made these people turn around to take a look before turning back. There was no other way. Although Lin Xian had killed many Sea of Soul Realm warriors, he was not famous in these people's eyes. However, he did not mind. Under such circumstances, the fewer people paid attention to him, the easier it was for him to take action. If I'm not wrong, this should be a place for alchemy. Someone analyzed. For some reason, pills will be spewed out every once in a while. Can we break the seal and enter? The people here were all elite disciples with high cultivation levels and statuses. They did not want to wait and tried all sorts of methods to enter. However, so far, no one had succeeded. Lin Xian stood by the side and understood the situation clearly. Is there really no way to enter? Lin Xian asked Lord Alcohol. It's difficult. If your cultivation level was higher, you might be able to. But now, it's too difficult. Lord Alcohol said slowly. Lin Xian sighed softly. At that moment, the house in front of him emitted light as a few rainbows flashed out. Pills are coming out. With a cry of surprise, the nearby warriors were all energized as they stared intently at the few beams of light in the sky. Lin Xian used his purple spirit eyes and realized that every beam of light was enveloping a pill. Every pill was different. Some were white, some were red, some were as big as longans, and some were smaller than grapes. Grab the one on the far left, Lord Alcohol reminded. Lin Xian looked up and was puzzled. The pill that Lord Alcohol mentioned was the smallest among all the pills. Moreover, its color was dim, as if it was a useless pill. Someone had already jumped up and pounced towards the largest pills. Although Lin Xian was puzzled, he still ran towards the dim pill. There were a total of 5 elixirs in the air. Among them, the largest one, a vermilion elixir, was being fought over by the crowd. Many cultivators also bid for the other elixirs. Only the elixir that Lin Xian had his eyes on had the fewest people, with only 3 people bidding for it. Lin Xian was one of them. As for the other 2, one was a disciple of the Lotus Glory sect, while the other was a disciple of the Chen family, one of the 4 great families. Both of them were at the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, and their powerful auras enveloped the surroundings. The 3 of them made a move at the same time, aiming for the pills in the sky. Chapter 128. The 5 pills in the air attracted a lot of people to fight for them. Lin Xian jumped up and rushed towards the smallest pill. At the same time, 2 other spiritual sea realm martial artists made a move as well. His eyes flashed. Under the effect of purple spirit pupil, he could clearly sense the cultivation of the other 2. In the eyes of outsiders, the 2 were at the first layer of the spiritual sea realm, but in front of Lin Xian, they were not strong enough. Golden electric arcs jumped under Lin Xian's feet. The power of wind and thunder appeared on his body as he quickly rushed towards the pills in the air. His speed was much faster than the other 2. Let go! How dare you! 2 angry shouts came. Their arms shook, and fierce spiritual power surged towards Lin Xian. They were all young men in their 20s. How could they tolerate a young man running in front of them? Feeling the energy behind him, Lin Xian sneered. He did not turn back, but hit out with a backhand chop. A bright sword ray flew out and turned into a waterfall in the air. With a fierce aura, it crashed into the attack from behind. At the same time, Lin Xian flicked his four fingers. For green sword chi, containing supreme sword intent, broke through the air and flew towards the two people behind him. Pong, pong. Three bursts of energy collided, emitting a dazzling light. What followed was a violent vibration. Whoosh, whoosh. Before the vibration subsided, four sword rays shot out from the inside like four divine swords, piercing towards the two people. The two martial artists who were fighting for the pills felt the fierce aura. Their scalps tingled, and they hurriedly formed a defense in front of them, hoping to block the horrifying sword chi. They never thought that the thin young man in front of them could emit such a powerful sword ray. The aura on it made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Just as the two were in a hurry to defend, Lin Xian had already arrived in front of the pill. With a grab of his right hand, he grabbed the pill in his hand. After getting it, he quickly retreated. All of this happened in an instant. When Lin Xian landed, the fight for the other pills had also ended. Wang Jianxing and Yuan Fei each got one, and the other two were taken by the two spiritual sea realm youths. After Yuan Fei received the elixir, he quickly put it away and turned to look in Lin Xian's direction. Actually, what he wanted to see was not Lin Xian, but that nearby Lotus Glory sect disciple. However, when he saw Lin Xian holding the dandan, he was slightly stunned. He narrowed his eyes and carefully stared at Lin Xian. When he sensed Lin Xian's cultivation in the early stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm, his eyes lit up. To be able to snatch the elixir pills from the hands of two middle-stage martial artists when he's only in the initial stage of cultivation, I'm afraid his means are not simple. Yuan Fei's eyes had a hint of curiosity, but that was all. Sensing Yuan Fei's gaze, Lin Xian raised his head and smiled. Then, with a flip of his hand, he swallowed the pill. This guy. Yuan Fei raised his eyebrows in astonishment. The medicinal properties of this kind of elixir were very strong. Usually, one would need to go into seclusion to cultivate in order to maximize its effects. Who would swallow it so casually like Lin Xian? Lin Xian seemed to be reckless, but he had already secretly asked Lord Alcohol. When he found out that this was a kind of elixir that could strengthen one's body, he swallowed it without hesitation. So bitter. Lin Xian frowned and muttered in dissatisfaction. A few cultivators who were closer to him heard this and their bodies swayed. They were so angry that they were shaking. This was a spirit elixir. It was fine if you casually ate it like candy, but you actually complained that it was bitter? How could you be so infuriating? The few of them had strange expressions and walked away angrily. Lin Xian shrugged, took out the red flame sword, and inserted it into the ground beside him. Then, he took out a cup of spirit wine and drank it in one gulp. Then, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Many people asked about the spirit chi and looked at Lin Xian with cold gazes. However, when they saw his Black Heaven sect uniform, they suppressed their ill intentions. The Black Heaven sect's chief disciple, Wang Jianxing, was still here. They did not dare to openly snatch something from a Black Heaven sect disciple. Looks like the Black Heaven sect has produced another outstanding disciple. Yuan Fei glanced at Wang Jianxing and said leisurely. Wang Jianxing also glanced at Lin Xian. His eyes flickered, and no one knew what he was thinking. I heard that he has comprehended sword intent. Sooner or later, he and I will fight. So, you don't have to provoke me. Wang Jianxing said coldly. Sword intent? Yuan Fei was surprised and looked at Lin Xian again. He did not expect this young man to be the disciple who had recently comprehended sword intent. In fact, he was not the only one. The nearby martial artists all looked at Lin Xian with vigilance in their eyes. Regardless of this young man's current cultivation, just the fact that he had comprehended sword intent was enough to shock them. Lin Xian did not know what these people were thinking. He was digesting the energy contained in the elixir and spirit wine. With the elixir he had just snatched, the spirit sea in his body had completely stabilized. The cyan spiritual sea spun continuously, producing a steady stream of energy. From afar, it looked like a piece of jade, sparkling and translucent. Above it was a mysterious glazed sword. Lin Xian could clearly sense the sword intent seed inside. It had grown from the size of a bean to more than an inch tall. After completely comprehending sword intent, Lin Xian realized that sword intent was divided into many levels. He had only comprehended 10% of sword intent. The longevity arts circulated rapidly as Lin Xian frantically absorbed the energy. With Lord Alcohol around, he did not have to worry about the situation outside. An hour later, he slowly opened his eyes. There was an invisible sword beam flashing in his pupils. He stood up and realized that everyone was waiting with rapt attention. Their bodies were faintly glowing. Whoosh, whoosh. Moments later, another elixir spewed out. One of them was five-colored. The moment it appeared, it emitted a rich medicinal fragrance that attracted everyone's attention. It's actually this elixir. Lord Alcohol was astonished. Xiao Xuanzi, if possible, get this elixir. Lord Alcohol said in a deep voice. It might be useful to me. Lin Xian nodded. Although he did not know Lord Alcohol's actual situation, he vaguely knew that Lord Alcohol was severely injured and trapped in the mysterious sword. Don't worry. It's just a pill. It's very simple. Lin Xian grinned. He stomped his feet and soared into the air, flying towards the five-colored elixir. The other warriors also moved. Most of them were heading for the five-colored elixir. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something tearing through the air rang out. The warriors' bodies glowed as they attacked each other to snatch the elixir. A warrior stretched out his palm, transforming it into a spirit energy hand the size of a millstone that enveloped the five-colored elixir. Open! Yuan Fei roared. His body was as powerful as a horned dragon as he shattered the spirit energy hand with a punch. In another direction, Wang Jianqing stabbed out with his sword. Like a falling star, he repelled several warriors as his cold gaze enveloped the surroundings. However, even more warriors charged forward. They did not know the use of the elixir, but from its aura, they knew that the elixir was extraordinary. Although they might not be able to consume it, if they brought it out and handed it to their family or sect, they would definitely be rewarded handsomely. Even if they did not hand it over, they could still earn a huge sum of money by auctioning it off at an auction. Just as everyone charged forward in a frenzy, a sword beam tore through the void and slashed at them. Chapter 129. A sword chi, more than 10 feet long, thick and sharp, slashed towards the crowd as if it was going to crush the void. The martial artists, including Yuan Fei and Wang Jianqing, were all shrouded by the sword. Some people in the distance were shocked. Who was this guy? How could he be so arrogant as to slash at so many people? Yuan Fei and Wang Jianqing were also stunned. Then they were enraged. They were the top fighting force here, and no one dared to provoke them. Even if they did, they would act as if they were facing a great enemy. They would not be like this, slashing at everyone. They landed on the ground with gloomy faces. The five-colored spiritual pill was trapped in the air by their spiritual power and kept hovering in the air. In front of the alchemy room, the atmosphere was heavy, and many martial artists looked at one person. The person who had attacked was Lin Xian. He had slashed his sword at the five-colored elixir. Therefore, any warrior who approached the elixir would be attacked. What do you mean? Wang Jianqing's body was full of sword chi, as if he was going to attack at any time. Yuan Fei and the others also stared at Lin Xian unkindly. It's simple. This pill is mine. Lin Xian's voice was calm, as if he was talking about something very normal. However, when these words fell into the ears of the crowd, it was like a stone falling into a lake, causing a huge uproar. Yuan Fei narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Xian unkindly. His eyes were like a ferocious beast, as if he was going to eat someone. Since we are from the same sect, I'll spare your life. Get out of here. Wang Jianqing sneered. The other martial artists laughed as well. If a martial artist at the second sky of the spiritual sea realm said this, they might be afraid. However, they would not take a brat who had just entered the spiritual sea realm seriously. Brother Wan, I'm sure the Black Heaven sect won't mind if I teach this kid a lesson. A young man in blue smiled evilly. Wang Jianqing did not say anything, which was a tacit agreement. He also wanted to see how powerful the legendary sword intent was. The young man stepped forward, and his body emitted crackling sounds. Fiery red spiritual power jumped like real flames. Kid, let me see what you're capable of. How dare you say such big words? What's your name? Lin Xian's expression was calm. I don't beat up nameless people. The young man's face instantly turned red from anger. My name is Chanin. You'll remember it. The blue-clothed youth used his spiritual power to condense 2 fire snakes, which wrapped around his arms. Then, he blasted out with both palms. Spirit snake palm. Light and shadows warped, and the air emitted scorching heat. Several snake shadows danced about, crisscrossing as they advanced. In an instant, a terrifying heat wave rushed over. If it weren't for the protection of the surrounding array formation, everything within a radius of 10 feet would have been roasted dry. This is the Chun clan's spirit snake palm. It looks like he has reached the second stage of spirit snake emergence. Someone recognized the martial skill used by the young man and whispered, "Let's see how that guy deals with it." Many martial artists sneered. Even a martial artist in the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm would have to take this temperature seriously. Lin Xian waved his hand, and the crimson flame greatsword appeared. He waved the greatsword and pointed it at the fire snake's head. Crack! Crack! The 10-meter-long flame spirit serpent was suddenly covered with cracks. Under everyone's astonished gazes, it shattered into pieces. So accurate. Could it be that he knows the flaw of the spirit snake palm? The onlookers were shocked. The young man Shenan's face was ashen. He didn't expect his ultimate skill to be so weak. Die! Waving both palms, for fiery red spirit serpents left his body and pierced towards Lin Xian from different directions. Dance of the wind and moon. Holding the long sword horizontally, Lin Xian spun like a top, forming a green light screen of sword qi in the area of 10 feet in front of him. Qi, qi, qi. Like a meat grinder, all the flame serpents that approached him were all killed by the sword light. What other moves do you have? Come on out, Lin Xian said in a low voice. If not, then it's my turn to attack. Don't be too proud. I'll let you see my ultimate skill. Chunan's face was burning. He couldn't beat a young man, which made him go crazy. Fire devours the world. Chunan twisted his body, which was unbelievably soft. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, the spirit energy in his body condensed into a huge serpent. It was over 10 feet long, and its entire body was made of spirit energy. The huge red serpent covered Chanin, and its tail continuously slapped the ground, forming a sea of flames and heat waves. Twisting his body, Chanin charged out with the red serpent. The serpent's head was the size of a house, and it had a fan-shaped mouth that bit towards Lin Xian. When thunder cut, Lin Xian held the large sword in a reverse grip and forcefully chopped up, and his body soared high into the air. Everywhere it passed, it brought along a dazzling sword light. The golden sword light flashed, and it seemed to cut open the air. It was fast to the extreme. Everyone only saw the sword light flash, and Lin Xian arrived before Chun. The icy cold sword edge was pressed against Chan An's neck, and the huge red serpent was cut into 2 and disappeared in the air. Chunan didn't dare to move. His body maintained a strange posture, and a layer of goosebumps appeared on his neck. He was sure that if he dared to move now, his head would be separated from his body. I've lost. Chun An's face was pale, and his voice was weak. Lin Xian put away his long sword, and in a flash, he appeared in front of Chen and looking up at the 5-colored pill in midair. A strong sword intent burst forth from his body. The sword intent was monstrous, and it pierced through heaven and earth as if it wanted to tear everything apart. What kind of power is this? Could it be that he didn't use his full strength just now? God, what kind of monster is he? The group of people's expressions changed drastically, and they all retreated. Chunan smiled bitterly as he retreated. He realized that his loss was not unjustified. Facing such a freak, perhaps only Wang Jianqing and the others could defeat him. Only 4 figures were left in the field, and they could withstand Lin Xian's sword intent. Is this sword intent? Wang Jianqing felt the piercing coldness in the air, and he was excited. But if you want to take away the pill, this is not enough. The aura on his body changed drastically, and it was as if there was a meteor behind him. Sword intent against sword force. Although the sword force was not as strong as the sword intent, Wang Jianqing's cultivation was far above Lin Xian's, so the two were evenly matched. At the side, Yuan Fei's body seemed to have doubled in size, and his muscles were exposed, making him look like a ferocious beast. The other two also used their body defenses to resist the sword intent. Lin Xian looked at the four of them without fear. He did not want to defeat the four of them, but he wanted to take away the pill. He knew this very well. It was difficult to defeat the four of them. At least with his current cultivation, it was impossible. However, if the four of them managed to snatch the pill and escape, there was still a high chance of success. His fighting spirit was high, and his sword intent surged. He looked like he wanted to fight, but he secretly used his soul power to investigate and plan his escape route. Lord Alcohol, I'll leave the array formation to you, Lin Xian instructed. Don't worry, I guarantee you'll be fine, Lord Alcohol replied. The surrounding people watched nervously. This might be a shocking battle, and they had to watch carefully. Perhaps they could get some inspiration. In the next moment, Lin Xian moved. He brandished his sword and slashed out several times. Each slash carried a huge sword chi, and it was like a ferocious flood dragon emerging from the sea. Sword chi filled the sky, and with the might of sword intent, it slashed towards the four people in front of him. Chapter 130. The sword chi that filled the sky slashed towards the four of them. Arrogant. You're courting death. The four of them attacked and dispersed the sword chi. Then, they charged towards Lin Xian. Everyone thought that Lin Xian was being too arrogant. It was impossible for him to fight 1 against 4, with 2 of them being the chief disciples of their respective sections. Lin Xian didn't take the attack head-on. His body swayed as he used the power of wind and thunder to leave behind countless afterimages on the ground. Every one of them seemed to be real, making it impossible to tell which was which. Petty tricks. Wang Jianqing sneered as he swung his sword. Like a shooting star, dozens of sword chi quickly attacked Lin Xian. Poof, poof, poof. Those afterimages were slashed apart one by one, turning into green smoke and dissipating. The number of afterimages decreased as the 4 of them gradually surrounded the remaining afterimages. I knew it. No one can resist the combined forces of the 4 of them. Many warriors sneered as though they were watching a good show. However, when the last afterimage disappeared, Lin Xian's real body still hadn't appeared. Wang Jianqing and the other 3 had gloomy expressions as they cursed inwardly. Then, they looked up. In the air, Lin Xian was like a huge bird. Wind blew under his feet as he arrived in front of the 5-colored elixir. Damn it, we were fooled by him. Yuan Fei's eyes were filled with killing intent as he glared at Lin Xian. Lin Xian grabbed the 5-colored elixir and gave it to Lord Alcohol with a flip of his palm. Then, his body swayed as he fled into the distance. Chase him. We can't let him escape. Wang Jianqing, Yuan Fei, and the other 3 locked onto Lin Xian and chased after him with all their might. It was only then that everyone realized that Lin Xian wasn't going to fight the 4 of them. His goal was only the 5-colored elixir. However, Lin Xian's aura was too strong. Anyone who saw it would think that he was going to fight. Lin Xian, stop right there if you have the guts. Do you dare to fight one-on-one? Wang Jianqing and Yuan Fei were so angry that they wanted to tear him apart. Haha. Lin Xian laughed heartily. You don't have to provoke me. There's still plenty of time in the future. When the time comes, I'll be able to beat you down with one hand. Arrogant. This is infuriating. The 4 of them cried out in anger, but there was nothing they could do. After entering the medicinal garden's array formation, their speed slowed down, while Lin Xian sped up. Damn it, how can he be so fast? Could it be that he knows about formations? The 4 of them were puzzled and could not understand. They could only grind their teeth. Seeing this, Lin Xian slowed down and began to stroll around the garden. From time to time, he would reach out and pluck the spiritual herbs. With Lord Alcohol's guidance, Lin Xian would pluck precious spirit herbs every time he took action. Before long, he had already plucked a dozen or so stalks, while Wang Jianqing and the others could only eat the dust. This won't do. If this goes on, we'll fall into their trap. Wang Jianxing stopped and regained his composure. Not only will we not be able to catch him, but we will also not be able to obtain the pills in the future. The other three stopped as well. They calmed down and glanced coldly at Lin Xian. Then, they ran towards the elixir chamber without looking back. Just as Lin Xian had said, there was still plenty of time in the future. The four of them were in no hurry to fight with Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled. He was not afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight. Even if the four of them joined forces, he could still win if he went all out. This was because he had the bronze gauntlet and other trump cards. Even if the four of them joined forces, they would not be able to defend against such an attack. After the four of them left, Lin Xian did not leave immediately. He guarded the large medicinal garden and began cultivating. There were countless spiritual herbs here. Coupled with Lord Alcohol's wine refining skills, it was not inferior to the elixir chamber. He gave all the spiritual herbs he had plucked to Lord Alcohol. He sat down cross-legged and began drinking the spiritual wine. The array formation here was like a natural defense that protected him. Ordinary people who did not understand array formations would not be able to enter. After drinking a mouthful of spiritual wine, Lin Xian closed his eyes and began cultivating with the longevity art. Lin Xian spent the next 2 days here. Apart from cultivating, he also plucked herbs. His days were very comfortable. Many disciples had found their own opportunities in other places of the blood-colored heavenly palace. In a secret chamber, Murong Qianling was holding a yellowed scroll. Her eyes were filled with excitement. In a room not far away, Zhang Jun was holding 2 bottles of pills. He was laughing maniacally. Like Lin Xian, he swallowed the pills and meditated, digesting them on the spot. Ling Feng had also gained something. Not only did he obtain some cultivation techniques, but he also obtained a few bottles of spirit spring water. All the disciples of the Ling family were laughing maniacally. Outside the trial of blood, the elders of the various factions were waiting. It's been half a month. I wonder how they are doing. Black Heaven Sect's elder Duanmu's eyes flickered. With their strength, they should have already entered the blood-colored palace. Lotus Glory Sect's great elder stroked his beard and said, "Everything else is easy, but I don't know if they have the chance to obtain the inheritance. It's difficult." The elders of the aristocratic families sighed. Even if they can't obtain the inheritance, it's not bad to be able to advance. The Ling family's elder was proud. Feng is already at the 2nd sky of the spiritual sea realm. If he enters the 3rd sky of the spiritual sea realm, he will have the chance to enter the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. According to past experiences, advancing to the 1st sky of the spiritual sea realm is a sure thing. I wonder if they had any other fortuitous encounters? The elders conversed with each other and looked at the seal vortex in front of them from time to time. Only the Zixia sect's elder was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. The Ling family's elder glanced at Black Heaven sect's elder Duanmu and sneered in his heart. If nothing unexpected happened, the sword disciples you care about are already dead. Daring to offend the Ling family, even if they are Black Heaven sect's geniuses, they will still die. In the blood-colored heavenly palace, Lin Xian opened his eyes again. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the 1st layer of the spiritual sea realm and would soon reach the middle stage. At that time, he would have the power to fight against a martial artist at the 2nd layer of the spiritual sea realm. Slowly standing up, Lin Xian decided to leave this place. In a short period of time, his cultivation couldn't increase, and he wanted to find other fortuitous encounters. Lin Xian was very pleased that Lord Alcohol had used the 5-colored elixir and was in much better spirits. "Hey, there's a little guy waiting for you," Lord Alcohol said with a smile. Lin Xian raised his head and saw Yuan Fei looking at him coldly from the exit in front of him. "Just nice to stretch my muscles." Lin Xian's expression was calm. His body turned into a flash of lightning and flew out. "Do you dare to fight me?" Yuan Fei's voice trembled like metal and stone clashing. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Lin Xian was fearless. "Good, you have guts." Yuan Fei laughed and threw out a punch. A strong wind blew, and the air trembled. It was as if a mountain was crashing down and the ground was collapsing. Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. Sword chi surrounded him and struck Yuan Fei's fist, producing a clang. So hard. Lin Xian was slightly taken aback. Yuan Fei's fist was harder than metal. Ordinary swords and sabers couldn't hurt him at all. As expected of the chief disciple, Lin Xian exclaimed. At the same time, sword and tint burst out from his body. The sharp sword chi emitted a golden light. Take this. With a strike, the air on both sides flowed backward and adhered to the sword chi. This strike was comprehended from the Wind Emperor's strike, and he called it the wind fusion style. The air swirled and formed countless wind blades in the air, slashing at Yuan Fei along with the sword chi. Golden body secrets. Yuan Fei shouted. A golden color appeared on the surface of his body, blooming with light. Soon, he turned into a golden body. Under the sunlight, he shone with a dazzling golden light, like a sun. At this moment, the sword chi clashed and slashed at his body. Chapter 131. Sword chi that was close to 30 meters long rushed towards Yuan Fei like a dragon. Yuan Fei didn't dodge. Instead, he used golden body arts to block the sword light. Rumble. Sword chi surged and slashed onto Yuan Fei's body with great force. In an instant, there was a loud rumble. Within a radius of 30 meters, energy overflowed and wild winds blew. The nearby disciples frantically retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the terrifying storm. So terrifying. This guy's strength is almost on par with the chief disciple. Some martial artists' voices trembled. In the distance, Wang Jianqing looked at the sword. His eyes flickered, and his battle-intent soared. When the light disappeared, the crowd could see the situation clearly. The ground was split open, and there was a terrifying crack that extended into the distance. Yuan Fei, who was in the center, stood proudly like a golden giant. He's fine. The nearby disciple's eyes almost popped out. Is he still human? He took a hit and he's fine. Golden Body Arts is a low-level spirit class martial art. Rumor has it that when practiced to a high level, it can achieve a perfect defense and ignore all attacks. In the crowd, a few high-level disciples whispered and looked at Yuan Fei with a trace of fear. If two people fought and one of them ignored the attack, it could be said that they were in an invincible position. Fighting with such a person, there was almost no chance of winning. At most, it would be a draw. Yuan Fei was 20 meters tall and looked like he was cast in gold. His whole body was shining with light. He looked at Lin Xian and said proudly, "What else do you have? Use it. You can't break my defense." Lin Xian's eyes flashed as he used purple spirit eyes to observe. He found that Yuan Fei's body was as hard as gold. His defense was insane, but his insides were the same as a normal person's. Looks like he hasn't practiced to a high level, or golden body arts can't refine his body. Lin Xian thought. Lin Xian didn't hesitate anymore. His body flashed and rushed towards Yuan Fei. Under his sword, there was no absolute defense. Everything could be cut open. Like a sudden flash of lightning or a gust of wind, Lin Xian's speed was extremely fast. Even a martial artist at the second sky of the spiritual sea realm might not be able to catch up with him. After a few flashes, he arrived in front of Yuan Fei. The red flame sword in his hand emitted a cold sword light. Sword intent surged and sword light danced. The long sword in Lin Xian's hand was like a gust of wind and lightning, thrusting out rapidly. Streaks of blazing sword light slashed towards Yuan Fei. The attack contained within could easily shatter a martial artist in the first layer of the spiritual ocean realm. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal rang out, and the air buzzed. Everyone's faces turned pale, and they kept retreating. Yuan Fei used his bare hands to block the longsword. Every strike had the power to split mountains. The two of them fought at high speed, and the sky was filled with afterimages. So fast, so strong. Everyone was shocked. This kind of battle had already surpassed the normal first sky of the spiritual ocean realm, and could even be compared with the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm. Yuan Fei is a genius on the hidden dragon rank. Who is that guy? Is he a genius from the rising star? Looks like he's the rumored sword intent genius of the Black Heaven sect. Lin Xian? Sword intent? Did someone really comprehend it? No wonder he's so strong. While everyone was discussing, Lin Xian and Wang Jian attacked quickly. Close to 100 moves had already passed. As expected of the chief disciple, although I didn't intentionally activate the sword intent, this kind of attack isn't something normal people can block. Lin Xian exclaimed inwardly, but there are still flaws. A smile appeared on his lips. Your defense is strong, but it can't stop me. Lin Xian laughed. The light on the long sword in his hand faded, and the blade appeared. What's going on? Where's his sword chi? Many people were confused. Only Wang Jinqing frowned. The sword light didn't disappear, but condensed into a line, gathering on the blade. This Lin Xian has such exquisite control. Pong! Lin Xian swung the red flame sword and smashed it directly, as if a mountain fell from the sky. Sun opening fist. Yuan Fei not only had a strong defense, but his strength was even more terrifying. His fist was like a sun, shining in all directions and blasted towards Lin Xian. Clang! Clang! Sparks flew in all directions, like raging waves crashing on the shore, deafening the ears. Every strike shook the ground, and that kind of power made people's hearts palpitate. What? Yuan Fei is retreating? Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. If Lin Xian had defeated Yuan Fei with a peerless sword technique, they could still accept it. But now, Lin Xian had directly competed with Yuan Fei in strength, and even won. This was unbelievable. Impossible. Yuan Fei's arm was numb, and his heart was in turmoil. His defense and strength were unmatched in the younger generation, but now he was being suppressed. Moreover, the person suppressing him was a sword cultivator. In the distance, Wang Jinqing also had a strange expression. He didn't see the sword intent that he expected, but he saw a scene that surprised him. Based on his experience, he could see that Lin Xian's every strike was aimed at the same spot. Even Yuan Fei couldn't withstand such a crazy attack. Open up. Yuan Fei was enraged. He felt that Lin Xian was provoking him. Sun-splitting sky. He punched out with both fists, and the terrifying power almost doubled. Lin Xian was pushed back, and his body floated backward like duckweed. Looks like Yuan Fei is angry. Someone exclaimed. I knew it. No one can suppress Yuan Fei. I'm afraid Lin Xian is in danger. Yuan Fei defeated the sword genius, Wang Jinqing. He has a special ability to restrain sword techniques. Indeed, ordinary sword cultivator's skills were all in the sword. Their attacks were extremely fierce, and they focused on killing with one strike. However, when facing a martial artist with strong defense like Yuan Fei, sword cultivators would often lose their advantage and become passive. Would Lin Xian follow in Wang Jinqing's footsteps? Everyone focused, waiting for the answer. Let's end this, Lin Xian said in a low voice. The battle just now made him understand that without using sword intent, his strength was on par with the chief disciple. Let's test sword intent again. His eyes became deep, and the aura on his body became fierce again, as if a peerless divine sword had been unsheathed. A trace of sword intent gushed out, as if it was 10,000 years old ice, making people's hearts tremble. So cold. What's going on? I can't move my body. Many people turned pale with fright. The chill was bone-chilling, as if there was a heavenly sword hanging above their heads. It's here, sword intent. Wang Jinqing's eyes were burning, and he held the long sword at his waist tightly. There, his 7-star sword was trembling slightly, as if it was out of control. Yuan Fei's expression was extremely serious. He felt an unprecedented danger, and his body instinctively defended, shining with golden light. Is this sword intent? I'd like to have a taste of it. Yuan Fei laughed, and his body rushed out like lightning. He raised his hand and swung his sword. Although it was a simple movement, it condensed all of Lin Xian's strength. At this moment, his essence, energy, and spirit reached an unprecedented height, perfectly fusing together. Wind fusion style. The green sword shadow flashed and disappeared in a flash, as if it had merged with the wind. There was no earth-shattering sound, nor was there a dazzling light. This wind fusion style, which contained sword intent, was completely different from the one he had just used. However, its power was stronger. Yuan Fei's pupils constricted, and he suddenly fell. He activated his strongest defense, and his body was like a golden furnace. At that moment, he dared to feel the aura of death, and this aura made his heart tremble. Without a sound, a sword radiance flew out of the wind and slashed his body. Poof! The blade of the sword slashed, and bright red blood splattered, like sparkling grains, and rolled down in the air. Near the herb garden, there was silence. Everyone seemed to be petrified, and they could not speak for a long time. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.